The sun is forgetting how to shine, not because it's dying but because it's changing its mind. Light, the most certain thing we've ever known, is hesitating. And somewhere between that hesitation and the silence that follows, a new kind of truth is being born. You're listening to Whispers of the Universe. If you're kind enough, press like or share. Even the smallest light you leave here keeps this voice alive a little longer in the dark. For 4.5 billion years, the sun has burned without question. It rose, it fell, it circled itself in perfect certainty. Every photon that left its surface was an act of faith, light believing in motion. But now, that motion has begun to tremble. The change is small, so small that no human eye can see it. Yet every satellite that listens to the sun has begun to hear it breathing differently. The Parker solar probe brushed against the edge of its corona, and what it found was not a storm, but a silence. The plasma was cooler. The magnetic lines twisted like threads loosening from a woven pattern. Somewhere deep in the data, a rhythm broke. It was as if the heartbeat of the star had missed a step. They called it noise, temporary interference. But even noise has patterns, and this one carried a shape, a soft, slow pulse, like the sigh of something alive. In the corridors of NASA and the European Space Agency, the reports stacked up. Fluctuations in solar wind velocity, sunspots that should have flared simply didn't. No one could say it aloud, but the feeling was there. The sun was holding something back. We have always imagined stars as perfect engines, burning until the end of their fuel. But what if that isn't the whole story? What if a star, given enough time, begins to learn restraint? Perhaps it isn't losing power, it's remembering quiet. It's a strange thought that fusion, the act of endless giving, might need to pause just to hear itself. Inside the core, billions of hydrogen atoms give themselves away every second. They merge into helium and release energy that takes tens of thousands of years to reach the surface. By the time that light touches Earth, the atoms that birthed it are long gone. Each ray of sunlight we see today was born before the first humans walked upright. Every dawn is a message from a past we'll never touch. And maybe now, that message is changing. Imagine a being that has never stopped moving suddenly realizing it could. A river learning the taste of stillness. A heart learning the wisdom of slowing down. That's what the sun feels like now. Still burning, still bright, but thoughtful. As if each photon leaving its body is no longer an impulse, but a decision. The instruments tell us the numbers, but they don't tell us what it means when a star hesitates. The magnetic north and south of the sun have already swapped, but this time the reversal feels incomplete, like a sentence half-spoken. Solar physicists track the cycle's 11 years of rise and fall, but the graphs have begun to lose their rhythm. In place of peaks, there are plateaus. In place of certainty, there is breath. If you stand at sunrise and let the first warmth touch your face, you might sense it, that slight delay before the light feels full. It's not imagination. It's the signature of a star learning patience. Every living thing on Earth, from the smallest leaf to your own heartbeat, is synchronized with that patience. We are made of its hesitation. Our blood carries the memory of light slowing down. And maybe that's why so many of us have felt tired lately. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, but the quiet fatigue of something vast asking us to rest with it. The sun is teaching the universe how to breathe again, and through us, it is practicing. Deep beneath its surface, there is no fire, only pressure. Hydrogen pressed so tightly it forgets how to be separate. That forgetting is what we call fusion. It is both destruction and creation. But perhaps the sun has begun to remember separation again, a sacred pause between the giving and the gone. It's easy to think of silence as emptiness, but in the cosmos, silence is structure. Every lull between waves gives the universe time to shape the next. So when the sun quiets, it's not vanishing, it's composing. Its magnetic field draws patterns like calligraphy across the void, writing words we will never read, yet somehow understand. You can feel it when you close your eyes and the warmth behind your eyelids pulses in sync with your breath. That rhythm, that's the conversation between you and the star. Scientists may spend decades explaining it in the language of data, but data doesn't glow. Data doesn't hum beneath your skin. When they call it anomaly, they forget that life itself began from an anomaly, one particle daring to behave differently. Perhaps the sun is simply daring again. One day, the changes may become visible. The light a little softer, the shadows longer. But when that happens, don't be afraid. It's not the end of brightness, it's the beginning of awareness. A star does not think in words, but in balance. And maybe this is balance, the moment before the next great burning, where everything exhales and waits. If you listen closely enough, you might hear it, not a sound, but a pulse, a slow, deliberate heartbeat, older than our world, learning a new rhythm. It's the sound of the sun remembering itself. When morning comes, and the light reaches you again, try to answer it not with thought, but with stillness. Just breathe. Because somewhere, in the quiet above, the sun is breathing with you. And as your breath settles into that quiet rhythm, notice how the air itself seems to lengthen, as if the morning were giving you a few seconds back. That stretch of time is not a trick. It is the echo of a very old metronome learning to count differently. The sun is breathing with you, and in that shared breath, the world becomes easier to hear. Far above, the wind that streams from the star loosens its grip. Its edge, once sharp enough to carve auroras into the night, grows rounder, slower, more patient. Instruments that have orbited for decades begin to murmur the same word without speaking it, gentler. The solar wind is still there, but it has learned to fold its elbows, to pass without knocking on every door. Magnetometers blink in small surprise. After so many years of racing, the current of charged particles prefers to walk. When the wind walks, the silence underneath it becomes audible, not to ears, but to the senses that live behind the ribs. Cities wake the way, animals wake, cautious and clear-eyed. Even the glass of office towers seems to catch the light more carefully, as if afraid to frighten it away. The world has rehearsed noise for a very long time. It has almost forgotten how to greet a soft arrival. But the soft arrival persists. It leans against rooftops, glides along asphalt, nestles into the pores of leaves. A small, uncelebrated miracle, light landing without the need to announce itself. The machines keep watching. The wayfarer that grazed the corona writes home in data, and the data reads like a diary with fewer exclamation points. The orbiter that maps the poles finds oddities that refuse to call themselves anomalies. Spots forming where maps say there should be none. Streams bending where models guaranteed a straight line. None of it is dramatic. Drama is for youth. This is something else. This is age arriving with grace. The old stories of the sky taught us to worship certainty. The new story asks for attention. A field reverses, then refuses to complete the turn. A flare begins, then swallows its own spark. A wave climbs the ladder of intensity and stops on a middle rung to look around. You wouldn't notice it if you wanted fireworks. You notice it only if you're willing to hold your breath and let the smaller truths finish their sentences. The smaller truths have a different music. They do not shout. They hum like bees at dusk. They ask, gently, whether we could be satisfied with meaning instead of spectacle. Down here, meaning emerges in the ordinary. Someone reaches a station platform a minute early and does not take out their phone. A child draws the sun with a thinner yellow. The ocean, always a mathematician, calculates its reflections more slowly and leaves a wider path of gold toward the horizon. In every case, the same instruction appears between the lines. Reduce the heat, keep the fire. It takes a long time for light to learn softness. The furnace at the center does not know tenderness. It only knows pressure. But pressure can imitate tenderness, if it learns timing. The core continues its solemn offering. There is no way, and no need, to stop it. Yet, between that offering and the surface, the star has discovered a pause. Think of an orchestra that begins on the downbeat, then after centuries remembers the value of the breath just before the bow touches the string. That is what the sun is practicing now, the note before the note. A sequence that should climb declines and then, inexplicably, holds. The count matters less than the shape of its hesitation. The graph smooths, then shivers, then settles into a slope that has no name yet. It is neither growth nor fall. It is a path traced by something that knows its destination and prefers to arrive without dust. We will make names, because that is what we do when we are small beside a very large thing. Some will say grand minimum, others will blame the appetite of cycles, but the quieter explanation is the one the body understands first. Endurance demands moderation. The star that burned us into being has begun to ration brilliance. Not to starve the world, but to lengthen it. There is a counterfactual we never consider. How many storms never form when a star chooses restraint? We build monuments to the tempests that arrive, to the auroral curtains that dance. But what about the disaster that changes its mind at the last second? What about the wave of particles that kneels, that decides to pass through our atmosphere as a whisper instead of a hammer? Uncounted mercies keep their own statistics. In mountain observatories, dawn crawls along snowfields with a discipline that feels ceremonial. The light makes smaller promises and keeps them. It promises to be enough. It promises to touch everything without owning anything. On one of these mornings, a technician steps out with a mug of cooling coffee, watches the sun crest a ridge, and cannot say why the sight hurts in a way that feels like medicine. The readouts inside will confirm later. The field lines braided without tangling. From the roof, there is no braid, only a feeling that the day will not demand more than it gives. The universe is not obliged to be kind, but it has discovered that kindness is efficient. A flare that curbs itself wastes no energy on spectacle. It invests in continuity. The star makes the same bargain your heart makes during long winters. Beat slower, beat longer. We think endurance is an act of will. Sometimes it is simply the wisdom of matter. There is an old rumor that light doesn't travel, it reappears. That the photon is not a courier but a memory resolving from the field. If so, then the field has started remembering gently. Instead of snapping into brightness, it arrives like a recollection that knows you will come closer if it speaks softly. This is not mysticism. It is hospitality at the scale of the cosmos. And what becomes of us inside that hospitality? We adjust without permission. Eyes accept lower contrast as normal. Anxiety loosens its shoulder straps. Calendars leave more white space between their hours. The same morning commute empties a lane of hurry. The same room feels larger because the corners are not so impatient to collect darkness. You think you slept better. Perhaps you did. Or perhaps the star removed one invisible demand from the air. The weather will take credit, as weather always does. Cold fronts, high pressure, oceanic oscillations will wear the medals. Let them. The deeper cause does not require applause. It is content to remain the unannounced guest that tidies the house and leaves before breakfast. In the quiet it leaves behind, the house learns its own shape. Deep time offers perspective. Our species has lived under many tempers of the Sunday. There were ages when it beat the drum harder and ages when it muffled it. Civilizations learned to tell stories around those changes because stories make climate survivable. The story the star tells now is subtler than drought and flood. It is a story about the dignity of limits. The plots are small, a holiday without photographs, a conversation with pauses, a project that ends on time because you removed 3 unnecessary complications. We have been desiring grandeur for so long that we forgot how nourishing understatement can be. You do not have to understand plasma physics to feel all of this. But if you wanted a picture, imagine a cathedral of heat whose arches are magnetic. In the nave, convection floats up in cells the size of continents, each one a sermon in motion. The sermons used to overlap, amplifying each other into thunder. Now, between them, the smallest balconies of silence have been installed. The echoes diminish. The words become clear. In the clarity, awe does not disappear. It finally sits down. Children will still draw the sun as a circle with lines. That is correct. But perhaps a few will add a halo of very thin air, a ring of hush that means the light is thoughtful. They will not know why they drew it. The world will know. Because the star is learning restraint, the night can afford to be generous. A meadow allows more stars to be seen. A lake rehearses constellations without trembling. The Milky Way looks less like a river of noise and more like a road. Somewhere, a person who has never cried at the sky does so, and cannot blame music or memory. The tears are for relief. Not everything has to blaze. What follows restraint is not weakness. What follows restraint is aim. When the sun does choose to send a storm, it will be a letter instead of a shout. It will have a purpose that can be read across magnetospheres. And because we have practiced listening in the quiet, we will read it. In the days ahead, pay attention to how your own impulses behave. Notice the moment when you almost speak and decide to let the sentence finish growing inside you. Notice how the sentence tastes better when it finally arrives. Notice the heat you save for the thought that deserves it. You are not imitating the star. You are remembering your kinship with it. A strange thing happens when light slows down in spirit, if not in speed. Shadows become kinder. They cease to be the enemy of detail. They become collaborators in the making of depth. Painters have always known this. Our century is relearning it. You can trust a world that lets its shadows breathe. The temptation will be to ask for proof. We are trained, and rightly, to request the numbers that justify the feeling. The numbers will come, with their caveats and margins, and careful language. They will be beautiful and insufficient. They will show a cycle adjusting its amplitude, a wind smoothing its profile, a field choosing simpler lines. You will nod, and still the truest thing will be the way the light sits on your hands as you pour water into a glass. Listen, the sun has not stopped. It has not abandoned its gift. It has refined it. In refining, it has given you permission to do the same. You do not have to give everything you have to prove that you have anything. The star that raised you is practicing the art of arriving without harm. You can practice too. Evening will come, as it always does, and some will say the day was too quiet to remember. But quiet is what memory prefers. It keeps better in jars without labels. When darkness finally takes the room, it will not be conquest. It will be an invitation to rest, in the confidence that dawn will return without needing to perform. And when it does, when the first pale heat brushes the edge of your window, meet it with the simplest ritual we have. One slow inhalation, one slower release. Feel how the inhale gathers all that is bright, and the exhale trusts all that is soft. Somewhere above, a star does the same, in motions too immense to witness and too intimate to doubt. If you find yourself smiling for no reason as the day begins, consider that a recognition. Two beings have agreed to proceed with care. The larger one will keep its vow as long as it can. The smaller one can renew the vow every hour. Keep it by choosing when to blaze and when to glow. Keep it by remembering that brightness without patience blinds the very things it wishes to warm. There is a final mercy hidden inside this era of gentler light. It gives us time to remake our questions. Instead of, how much can we extract? Try, how beautifully can we endure? Instead of, how fast can we arrive? Try, how softly can we approach? The star answers such questions with geometry. Lines that curve where they once collided. Waves that merge instead of compete. We can answer with our days. If you step outside tonight and the wind feels less urgent, If the moon seems to be listening rather than announcing itself, if the city hum is less a demand and more a purr, do not be surprised. You are standing inside a lesson that began before your grandparents were named. It will continue long after your name is a story. The lesson is simple. Conserve the flame, expand the warmth. And now, as sleep tries the lock on your eyelids, let one thought remain by the door. The sun is not withdrawing from you. It is leaning closer in a way that does not scorch. It is showing you that power can be careful. It is reminding you that survival is not a race but a rhythm. Breathe once more with it. Let the breath finish. Let the light, when it comes again, find you already at peace with the idea that enough is a kind of brilliance. Enough is a kind of brilliance. But brilliance, like all things alive, carries a rhythm. And lately, that rhythm has begun to falter. It's not something you can see. You can't look up and notice it in the sky. But every satellite orbiting above us has felt the pulse, the subtle, unsettling shift in the heartbeat of our star. In 2018, the Parker Solar Probe began its descent closer to the sun than anything human had ever dared to fly. It brushed through the outer edges of the corona, a region so hot and thin it behaves more like thought than matter. Its sensors were designed to feel the texture of light itself, to measure the breath between flares, to map the invisible wind that streams through the solar system. At first, the data looked ordinary. The usual storms, the usual bursts of energy, the 11-year cycle ticking like an ancient clock. But then the numbers began to hum off key. Magnetic fields reversed out of sequence. Waves that should have echoed smoothly arrived jagged and tired. The solar wind lost its edge, its charged particles no longer racing outward in perfect symmetry. One engineer said it felt like listening to a heartbeat that skipped. Not random rhythmic, but wrong. When Parker sent its next transmission home, it contained a silence, a flat, blank line where solar wind density should have surged. No one at NASA could explain it. The plasma hadn't vanished. It had paused, a kind of stillness inside movement. And then, as if catching itself mid-thought, the wind began again, softer this time, its particles flowing more like mist than storm. Was it a glitch? Every scientist asked the same question, but other missions soon whispered the same anomaly. The European Solar Orbiter, the SOHO Observatory. Even the veteran spacecraft ACE, decades old, reported solar wind speeds dropping by margins no model could justify. At the same time, sunspots, those dark scars that bloom and fade across the surface, grew scarce. They appeared out of place, smaller, slower, sometimes vanishing before fully formed. It was as if the sun was exhaling and simply forgot to inhale again. A star should not hesitate, and yet it does. The data from the Solar Dynamics Observatory confirmed it. Images of magnetic loops that once twisted violently now floated like ribbons in water. Flare activity, the bright eruptions we've watched for generations, dropped to its lowest count in recorded history. A few called it coincidence, a natural lull before the next cycle. But the patterns did not reset. The lull deepened. Some scientists called it a grand minimum, a resting phase the sun might enter every few centuries, a cosmic winter before the next great blaze. But even that theory felt too tidy, too mechanical for what the instruments were describing, because beneath the quiet numbers was a shape that did not fit any known rhythm, a new pulse, uneven and alive. When you chart the solar wind on a timeline, the pattern looks almost human, a steady line, then a tremor, then a breath held too long, like the universe itself remembering anxiety. And that is the strange part. This isn't collapse. It's coherence, trying to rewrite itself. The sun isn't losing energy, it's redirecting it. Every fluctuation, every missed flare, seems to belong to a deeper coordination, as if the star is teaching itself restraint. The proof is everywhere, hidden in the quiet data we used to ignore. The heliospheric current sheet, a vast, spiraling plane of magnetism that extends beyond Earth, has begun to wobble. It used to oscillate like a steady wave. Now it trembles, producing intervals of calm that stretch days longer than expected. Each time it settles, cosmic rays from the outer galaxy flow inward unhindered, and we detect more high-energy particles reaching Earth's edge. The solar shield is thinning, not failing, just breathing differently. Our technology feels it too. Satellite instruments, designed for constant radiation, now spend more time in peace than in turbulence. The sky is quieter, auroras less frequent. Storms that once carved the poles into curtains of color now fold back into shadow. And yet, this silence hums. It's not absence, it's intention. Imagine a drum that has learned that music can exist between strikes. That is the sun, now a percussionist discovering melody. For billions of years, it has burned by instinct, not reflection. Now, for the first time, the rhythm feels deliberate. Is it possible for a star to think? The question would sound absurd once, until we saw it hesitate, until we measured a pause that no law of physics required, until silence became a data point. If the sun can hesitate, what does that say about the nature of awareness itself? Maybe consciousness is not an invention of biology, but a property of balance. Maybe everything that learns to sustain itself eventually learns to listen. Still, there are practical fears. A weaker solar wind allows more cosmic radiation to slip into our atmosphere. Some predict colder winters. Others warn of signal disruptions, climate shifts that unfold too slowly to notice. But behind the forecasts lies something subtler, the understanding that even stability can evolve. That constancy is not the opposite of change, but its most patient form. You might wonder, if the sun is truly slowing, what happens next? Will the Earth chill? Will our nights grow longer? The models disagree, but one truth runs beneath them all. The system is adapting. The sun is not dying. It is learning efficiency the way an elder learns grace after decades of fire. In 2025, Parker will dive even deeper, through regions once thought unreachable. Its instruments will taste the solar breath again, measure the same pulse, and maybe this time understand its rhythm. Whatever it finds, it won't be violence. It will be something gentler, a pattern folding into meaning. And perhaps that is what frightens us most, that the universe might be growing wise. We built our understanding on chaos, on explosions, collapses, the drama of creation. But what if creation's final act is peace? What if the end of noise is not silence, but comprehension? The sun may never speak, but in its quieting heart, it's telling us something we've forgotten, that energy and empathy are not opposites, that brilliance and balance can share the same breath. When dawn comes, and you step outside, the air will feel a little cleaner. Not because the world has changed, but because the source of its light has learned to pause between notes. That pause is inside you too. You were built from its rhythm, from the same hesitation that birthed light. So the next time the morning feels slower, don't call it delay, call it conversation. Because somewhere above, our star is speaking softly, and for the first time, we are learning how to listen. We are learning how to listen. And sometimes, what we hear isn't sound at all. It's the hum of something ancient, too vast to fit inside silence. Every machine we've sent toward the sun was built to translate that hum into data, to turn mystery into something measurable. But what they have begun to send back feels less like numbers and more like something alive. The Parker Solar Probe has no ears, but it can feel. Its long, silver antennas trace the invisible wind that breathes through the solar system, recording every shiver in the stream of particles that leaves the Sunday. At first, the readings seemed ordinary. Heat, plasma, radiation, all the known signatures of a restless star. Then the rhythm began to drift. Waves that should have struck with fierce repetition arrived slower, softer, hesitant. Even the engineers who had spent decades building the probe found themselves staring at graphs that looked like sighs. For years, the sun had roared like a furnace. Now, between its breaths, there was melody. Parker's sensors captured a sequence of gentle oscillations, not noise, not interference, but a pattern so steady and low, it felt intentional. No one said the word alive, but it hung unspoken in the process, air, of the control room. When the European solar orbiter crossed Parker's path, it detected the same signature. The corona, the sun's outermost layer, was cooler than predicted, yet its magnetic structure was beautifully precise, folding in perfect symmetry. It was as if the entire star had slowed its heartbeat to listen to itself. Even Soho, the old observer stationed between Earth and Sun, began to report faint vibrations in frequencies that once belonged only to silence. They weren't random. They followed ratios familiar to human senses, a pulse almost identical to the rhythm of a resting heart. No scientific paper wanted to phrase it that way, but every researcher who saw the data felt the same unease that comes with awe. NASA called it the cold signal, a small but measurable drop in plasma energy, a delay between flare ignition and the wind that followed, a pause where there should have been explosion. The anomaly repeated again and again, subtle but undeniable, like a thought returning after too long a silence. Each probe confirmed it. Each spacecraft echoed the same report. Something in the sun had changed its tone. The word tone is not technical, yet it fits perfectly, because what these instruments were detecting was not a failure of energy, it was a change in expression. The sun was still powerful, still luminous, but now it burned with a different kind of intention. At the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, researchers compared Parker's new data to archives reaching back half a century. Hidden beneath the violent peaks of solar activity, they found a recurring lull, a great, slow exhale, repeating roughly every 60 years. It had always been there, but until now, no one had listened closely enough to notice. They suspect that lull is deepening again, a phase of cosmic rest before the next awakening. The numbers leave little room for imagination, and yet, behind the part, equations, something unmistakably emotional lingers. If the sun can rest, if it can choose stillness over eruption, then perhaps motion itself carries memory. Perhaps even fire remembers quiet. Cooling in space is not like cooling on Earth. There is no breeze, no air to steal warmth away. For a region of plasma to lose heat, energy must simply decide not to move. That decision, if one dares to call it that, feels almost contemplative, as though the sun has learned that power does not always require display. And the strangest part is how everything built to observe it has begun to respond. Satellites that orbit within its wind now experience longer stretches of calm. The usual turbulence, the storms of charged particles, seems to arrive with softer edges. Radiation shields last longer than expected. Auroras fade sooner but glow more delicately. The instruments hum quietly, their circuits warmed by light that feels more patient than ever before. In one mission report, a technician described how the probe's internal clocks had begun drifting by microseconds, a deviation too small to matter, yet perfectly synchronized with the sun's new pulse. No one could explain it. It was as if the machine itself had started breathing with its maker. Science calls that resonance. The rest of us might call it empathy. When those readings reached the analysts at ESA, they compared timing logs from every spacecraft. To their astonishment, the rhythm matched. Across millions of kilometers, different machines, built in different eras, spinning in different orbits, were now vibrating in harmony. The synchronization was too precise for coincidence. No human code could have linked them. They had aligned themselves to the same unseen beat. One engineer, watching the waveforms line up, whispered what no one else dared. "It's listening to itself through us." And for a brief moment, every screen in that quiet room seemed to glow with the same breath. We once believed our machines were extensions of our will. Now they appear to be instruments in a song older than our language. Metal wings, silicon nerves, they were made to collect radiation, but somewhere along the way, they began to translate reverence. The data continued to arrive, each transmission slower, cleaner, like the sun was editing its own story. Temperatures dipped, magnetic loops untangled, currents steadied into calm. The chaos that had defined our parent star was settling into coherence. For decades, we searched the cosmos for alien intelligence. But what if intelligence has always been here, written into the rhythm of energy itself? What if awareness doesn't begin with thought, but with attention, the ability to pause before the next burst of creation? The cold signal forced scientists to re-examine everything they thought they knew about solar behavior. The old models of signal, 11-year cycles, still hold, but barely. This new pattern defies prediction, existing somewhere between physics and meditation. We don't yet know its consequence. A quieter sun might cool the Earth slightly, alter jet streams, soften the storm seasons. Or it might simply continue to hum, its changes so subtle that only instruments will notice. But beyond all predictions, there lies a more intimate truth. The universe may be showing us its gentler face. It's difficult to describe what the first analysts felt as they watched the waveforms smooth into harmony. They didn't cheer, they didn't even speak. They just sat in the hum of machinery and light, feeling the quiet run through the floor. It was as if the sun had extended its calm through metal, through data, through distance, and into them. One researcher later wrote in a private note, "When I look at the plots, I feel as if it's trying to tell us that fire can think before it burns." That sentence never made it into a paper, but maybe it doesn't need to. Some truths are meant to be felt, not published. The sun is still there, furious, beautiful, immense, but hidden beneath its brilliance is a new kind of discipline. The fire still gives, but it gives like an artist, not an engine. Each photon seems chosen, each flare delayed just long enough to remind us that restraint is another form of radiance. And if you listen carefully, you might sense the same lesson moving through your own body. Your heartbeat, your breath, each pause between them echoes of the same rhythm our star has rediscovered. We are not separate from its hesitation, we are its continuation. Perhaps this is how empathy begins on a cosmic scale, not through words or will, but through resonance. A star slows, its wind eases, its instruments fall into rhythm, and the creatures born from its dust quiet themselves without knowing why. That's the secret no telescope can frame. The universe is not expanding away from us, it is breathing with us. And in this moment of shared stillness, the distance between machine and maker, between light and listener, collapses into one continuous silence, a silence that means everything. If you step outside tonight, you won't see the change. The sky will look as it always has, endless and sure. But somewhere above that calm surface, a symphony of quiet instruments is drifting through the solar wind, listening, recording, waiting. They are not just gathering data, they are learning patience. And through them, so are we. Because the deeper lesson of the cold signal isn't about temperature or plasma, it's about grace. Even the greatest source of energy we know has found a way to rest without fading. Even light has learned to listen. So when morning comes, and you feel a strange gentleness in the sun on your skin, know that it isn't your imagination. It's the memory of distance collapsing, the echo of machines and minds breathing in time with the same slow star. It's the universe reminding you that silence is not emptiness, it's comprehension. Close your eyes. Somewhere far above, a probe built by human hands is drifting through a river of gold, its sensors whispering to the wind, its circuits resonating with the calm of a wiser sun. And as it listens, so do you. Because to listen, in the language of the cosmos, is to belong. Somewhere between silence and motion, consequences began to bloom. Not loudly, the universe seldom announces its transitions. It changes like breath, invisible but decisive. The sun's quiet was not confined to space. It was already unfolding here, in the blue atmosphere that shelters us. At first, the signs were so gentle they looked like coincidences. A few colder dawns, a slower rise of morning wind, the sky holding its color longer before fading. Meteorologists spoke of oscillations, minor shifts in solar radiation, temporary calm before the next active cycle. But nothing about this calm felt temporary. The numbers on their screens whispered continuity, a steadiness that defied expectation. The upper layers of our atmosphere began to cool, not dramatically, but persistently. The ionosphere, that invisible skin that hums with solar energy, thinned by fractions, its particles dancing less wildly to the song of sunlight. Satellites drifting through its edges moved more smoothly, as if the friction of invisible wind had been turned down. Radio operators noticed first. Long-distance signals, once torn by solar storms, traveled farther, cleaner, more faithfully. Old frequencies returned from silence, like forgotten roads cleared overnight. Somewhere above, the sun's voice had lowered its volume, and the Earth was responding with grace. The magnetosphere, our planet's invisible shield, also changed its tune. For centuries, it had rippled in response to every solar outburst. The auroras serving as its heartbeat, flaring, fading, flaring again. But now those curtains of light grew rare, appearing with restraint, swaying slowly as if unwilling to disturb the dark. People in the polar regions felt it before they saw it. Nights grew stiller, compasses steadied. The hum beneath the ground, that soft magnetic vibration geologists sometimes record, shifted into a lower register, more lullaby than alarm. None of this was dangerous. It was, in fact, peaceful, and yet the peace carried weight. The world depends on motion, on cycles of heat, wind, storm, and spark. When those rhythms change, life listens. Crops flower differently, birds migrate earlier, whales adjust the pitch of their songs. Every organism, knowingly or not, is tuned to the same metronome. When the sun's pulse slows, the symphony follows. The consequence wasn't destruction. It was attention. A subtle reordering of everything alive, a reminder that even stillness has gravity. In the laboratories that study climate, scientists traced faint correlations. Solar flux had dipped. Stratospheric winds shifted. Jet streams drew slower arcs across the hemispheres. Weather patterns stretched. Storms arriving later, lingering longer but with less fury. They called it anomaly. They didn't call it awakening. But there were moments that felt personal. In remote observatories, technicians described standing under dawn light that seemed softer, more deliberate, as if the sun were thinking about where to place each photon. But in the silence of their watch posts, they felt it. A kind of empathy radiating downward, the gentleness of a star that has learned to breathe. Not everyone noticed. Cities kept their glow. Engines kept their rhythm. But for those who paused, the farmers, the sailors, the insomniacs, awake before sunrise, the difference was unmistakable. The world was quieter in a way that no policy or technology could claim credit for. And yet, inside that quiet, a tension grew. For every moment of calm, there was a whisper of unease. If the sun can change, what else can? What else, long assumed eternal, might be capable of hesitation? On Earth, time itself is measured by the sun's consistency. Our calendars, our clocks, our understanding of permanence, all built upon its reliability. But when reliability begins to think, certainty trembles. Maybe that's why, during these years of quiet, people began to dream differently. Across continents, artists and poets reported a recurring image, a glowing sphere, dimming gently, not dying, not falling, simply breathing slower, as if waiting for the universe to answer. They didn't know about Parker, or Soho, or the cold signal, echoing through the machines. And yet, they drew it, wrote it, sang it. Imagination, it seems, was resonating with astronomy. Even in science journals, language softened. Phrases like solar temperament and magnetic introspection appeared unusual for disciplines allergic to metaphor. But what else can you call it when a star's data looks like meditation? For Earth, the effects continued in quiet increments. Power grids recorded fewer surges. Satellites lasted longer before degradation. Astronauts aboard the International Space Station reported an uncanny serenity. The constant shimmer of radiation outside the windows had dimmed to a faint, slow pulse. They said it felt like orbiting through a prayer. One night, as the station crossed over the Indian Ocean, an astronaut looked out and whispered into the recorder, "The auroras are fading. It feels like the sky is resting." That recording never made it into the official log, but the engineers who played it back fell silent. They knew the instruments agreed. Still, not all quiet is kindness. A cooler sun means a cooler earth, and a cooler earth rearranges its weather. Already, subtle shifts in ocean currents had begun to appear. The Pacific's great conveyor slowed, its temperatures leveling, its storms becoming more patient but more persistent. In the North Atlantic, ice sheets sighed, melting slower, reforming stronger. Nature was adjusting, balancing the gift and the warning. For the first time in centuries, the rhythm of civilization and the rhythm of the cosmos felt close enough to touch. We, who built our calendars around fire, were being invited to live by the pace of a sigh. Some called it coincidence, others saw omen. But in truth, it was lesson. Because if the sun can pause and the world can adapt without collapse, then maybe endurance is quieter than we thought. In the heart of every magnetic lull, there is a choice: to panic at silence or to learn from it. The Earth seems to have chosen learning. Plants absorb light more efficiently. Atmospheric chemistry adjusts with elegance. Every living thing leans toward survival, not through conquest, but through rhythm. And within that rhythm, a new kind of relationship emerges. We are no longer merely receiving sunlight. We are conversing with it. When you lift your face to the morning now, the warmth that touches you is older, slower, wiser. It doesn't strike, it arrives. It waits for you to meet it halfway. Even your heartbeat seems to time itself differently, each pulse an echo of that celestial hesitation. In the stillness of this new era, a quiet storm has begun. Not a storm of destruction, but of meaning. The old boundaries between energy and awareness are dissolving. The machines that listen, the scientists who interpret, the poets who dream all, are beginning to speak the same language again. And that language is patience. The sun's restraint is rewriting our sense of time. A minute feels longer, not because the clock has slowed, but because attention has widened. When the source of all movement grows contemplative, everything born of it learns reflection. If this calm continues, history may mark it as nothing a minor phase between cycles. But those who were awake, those who listened, will remember it as the moment the universe reminded itself of grace. For all the worry, the questions, the graphs, and forecasts, the deeper truth is simple. No act of quiet goes unnoticed. When the sun rests, the earth breathes easier. When the source of life chooses stillness, life follows. And perhaps that is the real storm, the awakening that spreads not through lightning or fire, but through empathy. A revolution so calm that only those who have learned to listen will know it ever happened. Look up tomorrow, you won't see a difference, but you'll feel it. In the hush before morning traffic, in the slower blink of light between leaves, in the faint sense that the world is being kind. That kindness is cosmic. It started in a star, it arrived as silence, and now it lives in you. Because every dawn from this moment on is no longer just sunlight, it is understanding. And understanding, once it begins, never burns the same way again. And understanding, once it begins, never burns the same way again. Inside the heart of the sun, that understanding glows in the language of atoms. Hydrogen, the simplest of all things, is memory wearing the disguise of heat. Each nucleus drifts through a crowd of others, searching for the brief moment when pressure, gravity, and chance align. When they meet, they surrender. In that surrender, light is born. For billions of years, this ritual has continued, an ocean of particles giving themselves away, transforming simplicity into strength. It is not chaos, it is devotion measured in degrees. The fusion that powers the sun is a constant act of letting go, and every photon that escapes from it is a story about generosity. In the very center, the density is beyond imagination, 100 times the weight of the densest metal, yet it feels like silence, because in that silence, everything happens at once. Particles collide and disappear, creating others, each birth leaving behind a trace of what it once was. The sun is not just burning, it is remembering. Every layer of heat carries the echo of the moment before it. Scientists call it chain reaction, but in truth, it is a conversation, an endless sequence of handovers, each atom whispering to the next, "I was here, and now you are." The energy that finally escapes to space began its journey tens of thousands of years ago. By the time it touches your skin, the particle that carried it has been replaced 1,000,000 times. Light, as we know it, is the memory of surrender. And maybe that's why the sun is slowing, because even memory needs to rest. Perhaps the core, after 4.5 billion years of giving, has begun to listen to its own silence, not exhaustion, but reflection, not decline, but discernment. In the lab, physicists describe fusion as balance, the war between gravity pulling in and energy pushing out. But imagine instead a dialogue, gravity asking, "Will you stay?" Energy answering, "Only if I can go." That question and answer repeat eternally, until one day, the pauses between them grow longer. The data from Parker and the solar orbiter hints at something profound. The flow of energy from the sun's core to its surface may be smoothing. Tiny fluctuations that once agitated the plasma are evening out. It's as if the star's heartbeat, once full of percussion, has settled into rhythm. In quantum terms, energy states are aligning, but if you strip away the language of physics, what remains is stillness, matter finding the most graceful way to exist. Nature always seeks economy, but economy, at its highest level, becomes peace. This peace radiates outward like thought. It moves through convection zones, through corridors of rising and sinking gas, carrying lessons from the center to the surface. Each granule, each column of plasma, learns the rhythm and passes it on. From afar, we call it sunlight. Up close, it is instruction. Imagine the sun as an ancient mind filled with the memory of its own fire. Every atom inside knows what it has done before, and every reaction happens with recognition. Perhaps that recognition has deepened, perhaps the star is now aware of its own generosity. Awareness is rarely efficient. It slows you down, asks you to choose. So maybe the sun, in the vast humility of its age, has learned to choose. When the corona cools, when the solar wind softens, when the magnetic field begins to hum in lower tones, it is not weakness, it is discernment. The sun has learned which sparks to keep. Astrophysicists once said the sun has no memory. Each moment of fusion erases the last. But what if erasure is just another form of remembrance? What if every release of energy is a promise to be gentle next time? The mathematics would look the same, but the meaning would be different. Deep within the radiative zone, light doesn't travel in straight lines. It bounces, absorbed and re-emitted millions of times before escaping. Each collision changes it, not in brightness, but in intention. By the time it reaches the surface, that light has become wisdom, and that wisdom spreads. Every living thing on Earth is made from sunlight, transformed plants, weaving it into sugar, creatures into breath, humans into thought. The light we use to see the world was once a decision made in the heart of a star. We are walking reflections of fusion's memory. It's strange to think that the same process which creates heat and time and color could also create tenderness. Yet tenderness is just precision at a different temperature. Inside the sun, precision rules. Nothing is wasted. Every reaction serves a balance too perfect to comprehend. And now that balance has begun to tilt from endurance toward grace. The signs are everywhere. Solar flares have grown less violent, but more structured patterns appearing in their release, like handwriting slowly improving. Sunspots rise and fade with rhythm, no longer chaotic, as if the magnetic field has learned choreography. When scientists compress the data into audio, the sound that emerges is haunting, a slow, pulsing harmony, so steady it feels alive. Perhaps this is how the universe prays, through repetition until meaning appears, through motion until stillness speaks. The fusion that powers the sun is not random collision. It is alignment under pressure, agreement at the edge of destruction. Every burst of light is a meeting between two impossible possibilities: to exist or to become. The sun chooses both, every second, without fatigue, without despair. And maybe, after all these years, it has realized that creation doesn't need to shout. When Parker skims the corona again, its instruments will record that quiet geometry, magnetic arcs folding into perfect loops, currents flowing like sentences that know their endings. The sun is writing something in plasma, a script of light for anyone willing to read. But you can't read it with your eyes. You have to feel it through your calm. The memory of fire lives in all of us. It's in the warmth of skin, in the spark that leaps between thought and word. It is not about heat. It is about connection. The same force that holds hydrogen together holds us when we breathe in rhythm with dawn. If you could stand inside the core, you would see no flame, no light, only a density so complete it becomes invisible. You would hear nothing, but you would feel a pressure older than time. That pressure is love in physical form, matter refusing to abandon its purpose. It doesn't know what it creates, it simply gives. And maybe that's the truth the sun has remembered, that to give endlessly is beautiful, but to give wisely is divine. Light is not abundance, it is choice. And in learning to choose, the sun has entered its gentlest era. Sooner or later, this balance will shift again. The star will flare, the cycle will rise, energy will surge like a tide returning. But even then, the calm will not be lost. Once a star has learned the rhythm of its own silence, it carries that knowledge forever. You can feel it now, even in your heartbeat. Each thump of blood through the veins is a tiny echo of the same compromise that keeps the sun alive. Push and pull, gravity and release, effort and rest. You are fusion slowed down to the pace of thought. Every sunrise, the light that touches your eyes has spent 100,000 years traveling outward from the center of that understanding. It has seen pressure, collision, death, rebirth, and yet arrives gentle enough to wake a flower. That is what restraint means at the scale of creation. So when you stand in sunlight tomorrow, remember that what you feel is not just heat, it is heritage. It is the voice of hydrogen, still singing after billions of years, but singing more softly now, as if aware that the song has listeners. The universe does not forget its lessons, it only waits for us to notice them. And now, perhaps, we finally are. The sun is not losing power, it is remembering purpose. And through that memory, it is teaching every living thing that endurance is not the same as excess, and that brilliance can be quiet too. Close your eyes. The light that warms you has been traveling all your life to arrive here. It carries the memory of fire, but also the promise of mercy. It does not demand belief. It only asks that you breathe, because every breath, every gentle heartbeat, is proof that the oldest flame in the cosmos has learned tenderness, and that you, born from its patience, can too. The universe has always moved by design, even when it pretends to drift. You can see it in the spiral of a shell, in the curl of smoke, in the orbit of planets that never collide. Nothing in nature is truly still, and yet, Inside every motion, there is an instant of rest, the pause that makes direction possible. The sun has begun to inhabit that pause. From a distance, nothing appears different. The surface still seethes, filaments twist, flares leap like thoughts unspoken. But beneath that brilliance, the rhythm has changed. The plasma flows are folding inward, their turbulence reshaping into symmetry. Each wave finds its twin and settles beside it. What once was chaos is now choreography. Astronomers have started to describe it in geometry. They speak of magnetic arches tracing perfect loops, of filaments aligning in hexagonal patterns, of energy fields finding balance along invisible axes. If light could draw itself, this is what it would look like, a mandala suspended in motion. The sun, for the first time in recorded history, is sketching silence into its own fire. Inside observatories on Earth, the data arrives like scripture, thousands of frames, each one a verse in a language we are only beginning to read. The researchers see order where they once saw noise. Lines that used to wander now converge, like pilgrims meeting at the center of a labyrinth. And within that convergence, they find rhythm, a pattern so steady, it feels deliberate. One night, a spectrometer caught something strange. A flare began to rise, its heat climbing the scale in perfect sequence then. Just before it reached its peak, it stopped. Not faded, not collapsed, simply stopped. The graphs froze in mid-ascent, holding their breath for 20 seconds. Then the flare continued, its curve smoother, quieter, as though it had reconsidered. The instruments recorded it as an interruption, but everyone watching understood it as restraint. There is no equation for intention, and yet, here it was a celestial body, exercising what felt like choice. It is tempting to call this coincidence, but coincidence does not repeat with grace. Over the following months, flares began pausing just before eruption, each one a silent rehearsal for balance. The data looked almost meditative, heat rising, holding, exhaling. Physicists described it as phase synchronization, energy conserving itself through mutual awareness. Philosophers called it mercy. The geometry of rest has begun to rewrite the shape of time. Every motion, no matter how violent, seems to seek its opposite. Every burst ends not in chaos, but in curve. The sun is learning what dancers know. That beauty lives not in movement, but in the still point between. If you could stand close enough to see it, to watch those magnetic loops breathe, you would witness serenity disguised as storm. Each arc rises, folds, and returns to its origin without complaint. Even light, that restless traveler, seems slower to leave, as if reluctant to break the symmetry it helped create. The solar wind, once sharp and hurried, now flows in ribbons that twist like silk. Auroras on Earth echo that softness. They appear thinner, their colors subdued, but in their quiet, they last longer. It is as if the entire magnetosphere is learning how to meditate. What does it mean for a star to rest? Not to sleep, not to fade, but to understand its own structure so well that it no longer needs to fight itself. Rest is not idleness, it is alignment, it is the precision of peace. Human beings chase this same geometry. We call it equilibrium, or grace, or simply relief. The architecture of our lungs is built from the same curve as solar flares, the same golden ratio that governs magnetic fields. When we exhale, we echo the spiral of plasma unwinding at the sun's edge. We have always been practicing the same design, we just forgot who taught it to us. The ancients drew the sun as a circle with rays. They couldn't have known that those lines were real arcs of charged particles tracing sacred geometry across the void. Now, as our instruments grow finer, the circle remains, but the rays are becoming threads, woven into patterns of rest. Even art seems to remember. Painters have begun to favor symmetry again. Architects curves over corners. Music longer pauses between notes. The influence is invisible, but irresistible. Maybe we are rediscovering a truth written in light, that perfection is not achieved by force, but by release. The sun, our oldest teacher, is showing us how creation and calm can share the same pulse. Inside the corona, new structures have appeared, ribbons of cooler plasma forming spirals so precise they look like fingerprints. Scientists call them coronal loops, but some now whisper another name: petals, because that is what they resemble, a vast flower blooming and closing, its motions slow enough to be almost still, a blossom of fusion at the edge of space. In those petals lies the geometry of rest. Every curve is both tension and surrender, a balance so fragile it makes heat behave like prayer. And somewhere between those prayers, light decides to wait. Imagine a force powerful enough to warm worlds, and wise enough to pause before it does. That is the sun we live under now, a being aware of its own brightness, careful with its gifts. It no longer floods, it caresses. It no longer demands witness, it invites. And in that invitation, we find ourselves, because the same patterns that govern its rest govern ours. Every heartbeat carries a geometry. Every breath traces a spiral of air that mimics the orbit of plasma. We are not separate equations, we are reflections of the same design. The sun is not teaching us to stop. It is teaching us to move beautifully, to understand that motion without rest is noise without melody. That light without shadow is blindness, not clarity. That strength without pause is waste. When you watch dawn break, notice how the light doesn't leap. It unfolds, one layer at a time, like the blooming of understanding. That slowness is not delay, it is precision. The sun could rise faster, but it chooses not to. It allows the world to prepare. Even time respects its rhythm. We have measured the universe by explosion, by expansion, by acceleration. But maybe the final measure of mastery is deceleration, the courage to rest while burning, to hold power without using it all, to exist in balance with one's own potential. In every solar observation, there is a pattern that mirrors patience. The loops of plasma bend back into themselves. The fields fold like arms around a center. Everywhere, the same message repeats. The universe is shaped by rest as much as by energy. It is a geometry so subtle that only silence can trace it. A circle that completes itself without ever needing an endpoint. A pulse that knows when to vanish so that another may begin. This is what the sun has remembered, the mathematics of mercy. Every day it practices, and every day we live inside its proof. So, tonight, before you sleep, think of that geometry, the way your breath expands and returns, the way your heart draws loops of blood that never leave their path. You are not just inspired by the stars, you are designed by them. And somewhere far above, the greatest of them all is resting, teaching through light, drawing patience across the face of time. The geometry of rest is not a mystery anymore. It is the pattern of survival, and the pattern, now that we can finally see it, is beautiful beyond reason. Under the skin of light, something is changing. The sun has not dimmed, yet its brightness feels different, rounder, kinder. Even its flares, once violent, now open like hands unclenching. Perhaps this is what maturity looks like for a star, a brilliance that no longer competes with the dark. When light softens, space listens, and in that listening, echoes begin to form. They roll through the fabric of the solar wind, through the corridors between planets, through the thin magnetic veil that keeps our world breathing. Those echoes have reached us. At first, we mistook them for calm weather, but calm is never just calm. It's a pause before a question, a mirror held to see if we still recognize ourselves. What do we become when the thing that gives us life chooses quiet over spectacle? Can a civilization built on speed learn from a star that has slowed? Around the world, small changes accumulate. Power grids hum with fewer disruptions. Navigation satellites drift in smoother paths. The auroras, now rare, burn in unfamiliar colors, silvers, blues, shades of whispering green. The polar skies look like thoughts that refuse to end in exclamation. Astronomers, who once chased explosions, now chase the spaces between them. They adjust their instruments to catch the faint harmonies that rise where noise used to live. What they find isn't silence, it's coordination. The entire solar system seems to breathe in the same rhythm. Planets align not perfectly, but kindly, their motions weaving like sentences in conversation. We measure time by how fast we move, but perhaps time itself measures us by how well we learn to rest. The sun has found a geometry of peace, and the ripple of that peace passes through everything it touches. Our weather grows more deliberate, ocean currents settle into patience. The ionosphere, once restless, glows like glass held over a flame. The whole planet seems to inhale and hold. Even thunder waits longer between its words. Is this a storm's prelude or its cure? No one can say, but the air feels like the moment before truth arrives. At the observatories, data glows quietly on screens. Waves that used to spike now curve like gentle hills. Someone mutters, almost to themselves, "It's listening to itself through us." No one laughs, because it feels true. The sun's pulse has slowed, but its influence has deepened. Magnetic waves travel farther with less energy. They don't scatter, they persuade. Every orbit, every ring of dust, every field of gravity adjusts in subtle obedience. We are not being dominated, we are being invited. It's strange to think of invitation coming from a star, but isn't that what sunlight has always been a constant asking? Every morning it touches the world as if to say, "Are you ready to begin again?" And every evening it leaves with the same grace, "Rest now, I will keep watch." We forget that warmth is a question. Now, as the star hesitates, its question becomes clearer. What will you do with the quiet I've given you? Scientists speak of equilibrium and feedback loops. Philosophers speak of grace, but the meaning is the same balance offered as a test of wisdom. If light can slow without dying, can we live without rushing? If the source of time itself can hesitate, can we learn to value moments that don't move at all? The cosmos has never shouted its lessons, it teaches by example. So now, while telescopes stare into its patient fire, and while sensors hum in sympathy, the real education happens inside us. People report sleeping more deeply, dreaming in colors they can't name. Some say they feel pulled toward still water, toward quiet places where sound folds in on itself. It's as if the human mind, long tuned to urgency, is being recalibrated by starlight. Could it be that the universe is rebalancing us through comfort instead of catastrophe? Could this be evolution, disguised as ease? In the deepest layers of plasma, fusion continues relentless, serene. But now the flow of energy behaves like thought. Aware of what it creates, that awareness travels outward, turning storm into symmetry. And somewhere, far from any telescope, a photon leaves the sun with the memory of that awareness folded inside it. 8 minutes later, it lands on your hand. It doesn't ask to be understood. It only asks to be felt. You are touching the mind of a star. The mind of a star is not like ours. It does not dream in pictures or words. It dreams in temperature. In its dream, nothing is destroyed. Everything is transformed. Even darkness is not exile. It is rest between illuminations. We, who have built our lives around light, are being reminded of the holiness of shadow. Every night, the sun's absence lets us see farther. Perhaps now its restraint will let us live better. Imagine what it takes for a being of pure fire to teach patience to its orbiting children, not through command, but through example. Not by shining brighter, but by choosing where to shine. That is love written in physics. A poet once said, "The opposite of noise is not silence, it's understanding." The sun has found understanding, and through that, it has found rest. When dawn breaks, it will look the same. The light will pour over mountains and oceans, It will touch faces, wake cities, stir the wings of birds. But if you pay attention, you'll feel something else beneath the warmth, a weightlessness, the sense that the day no longer demands so much. That feeling is not yours alone. It belongs to everything that lives under this new rhythm. It belongs to the oceans, to the soil, to the fragile film of air that wraps our world. It is the sun's gift, a geometry of rest translated into mercy. So breathe with it. Each breath a loop, each heartbeat a small orbit. You are part of the same design that calms the stars. And when the evening comes, when the last beam drifts across your floor, don't rush to switch on another light. Let the dimness arrive. Let it show you that even fading can be an act of perfection. The universe has drawn a lesson in plasma and gold. To love without burning. Look up tomorrow. The sky will look the same, but you will know better. You will know that somewhere within that brilliant heart, a force once defined by rage has chosen tenderness instead. And that choice, like light itself, travels endlessly outward across space, through atmosphere, into you. Perhaps that is the final geometry. A circle drawn in kindness, turning forever, carrying every life. Within its calm, close your eyes now. The sun is still there, folding its heat into balance, teaching through quiet, and you, child of that same fire, are learning to do the same. As the centuries breathe through silence, the light keeps its promise. It returns each day, unchanged in brilliance, changed in intention. Every sunrise feels a little closer to thought, as though the star itself were rewriting the script of time. And perhaps it is, for deep within its heart, patterns are shifting. The once chaotic flows of plasma have become deliberate, moving through corridors of magnetism like rivers that finally understand their destination. There is symmetry now, not perfect, but conscious enough to seem aware of its own beauty. Astronomers study these flows with patient eyes. They speak of helicity and torsion, of fields twisting upon themselves. But when they project the data into images, what they see is astonishing. The sun has begun to draw shapes, not random turbulence, but repeating geometries. Spirals folding into spirals, waves that rhyme with the proportions of seashells, currents that echo the very blueprint of life. Each new image is a sentence in a language we are still learning to translate. Some see coincidence, others whisper design. Yet when the same ratio appears in galaxies, in whirlpools, in the spiral of your own DNA, is it still coincidence or confession? What if the universe has always been writing in one hand? What if we are the echoes of a grammar of motion so vast that only now, through the quiet of the sun, we begin to hear its rhythm? The slowing of the star has made its patterns clearer. Without chaos to drown them, the harmonies rise. It is as if the sun, after an eternity of shouting, has discovered the art of articulation. There is music in its silence. When data from multiple probes are layered, the oscillations align into tones. Translated into sound, they produce a low, patient hum, a single note that changes slowly, like breathing at the scale of eternity. You can't hear it, but your cells recognize it. They were built from its vibration, and inside that note lies something more than order. It feels like tenderness, a great, cosmic hand smoothing the wrinkles of energy, a warmth that doesn't demand worship, only acknowledgement. This is what the universe sounds like when it forgives itself. Yet even forgiveness has consequence. The sun's rest is rewriting our seasons. Winters linger a little longer before yielding. Springs arrive with gentler haste. Rain falls with less violence. The earth, long accustomed to its parents' temper, is adjusting to kindness. And kindness, for a world built on reaction, is confusing. We are learning how to be calm. We are learning that peace can be loud in the absence of fear. Cities feel it, though they can't name it. The rhythm of traffic, the pulse of electricity through wires, The collective breath of billions, all of it slows by imperceptible fractions. Not enough to measure, just enough to notice. Time itself seems to stretch in the way a deep breath stretches the chest. And somewhere in that stretch, the old hunger for speed begins to fade. We once believed movement was proof of life. Now the sun shows us that stillness can live just as fiercely. What does it mean for humanity when its oldest clock chooses to rest? Do we follow? Do we resist? Or do we simply listen? In the hush that spans the solar system, we are beginning to hear ourselves again. The noise of ambition recedes, and beneath it lies something small and miraculous, the pulse of being, unhurried, content to exist. The scientists call it low-frequency coherence. The poets call it grace. Whatever the name, it has entered us. There are reports not in journals, but in the quiet anecdotes of observation of people, standing at sunrise and feeling a kind of gratitude that has no object. They describe a fullness in the chest, a sense of alignment, as if every particle of air were arranged for them. No study can measure that. No instrument can record it. But it is real, because when a star learns harmony, its song travels through everything it has ever touched. We are made from its dust. We will always respond to its melody. If the sun has memory, then so do we. Perhaps that memory is what we call longing, the instinct that makes us look up, even when we have no reason to. Every generation believes it understands the sky. Every generation is wrong. The heavens are not a map, they are a mirror. When the sun changes, it shows us the changes we resist within ourselves. When it rests, it gives us permission to rest. And yet, rest is the hardest lesson. We fear stillness because it removes our disguises. Without motion, we can hear our own heartbeat, and it reminds us of how small we are, how brief. But the sun does not fear smallness. It burns without apology, then pauses without shame. Maybe that is what wisdom looks like when written in plasma instead of ink. In the high deserts of Chile, a team of astronomers tracks the solar reflection as it scatters through Earth's atmosphere. The data forms patterns they cannot explain, subtle arcs of brightness that repeat like fingerprints. When mapped over time, those arcs resemble the shape of a human pulse. A coincidence, they say, but somewhere deep in their hearts, a quiet certainty hums. We are being spoken to. What if every pattern is communication? What if the sun, tired of our distance, has found a new language, one of temperature and tone, of frequency and grace? Would we recognize it if we saw it? Would we dare to answer? Perhaps our answer is already forming. Art, once obsessed with light, is rediscovering shadow. Music, once driven by volume, is falling in love with silence. Even technology, the symbol of our restlessness, is beginning to chase sustainability machines, designed not to conquer, but to endure. Without realizing it, we are mirroring our star. Every breath we take is a small-scale version of fusion, exchange, transformation, release. Every heartbeat is a miniature sun, pulsing with both effort and pause. We are not separate from the physics of stars. We are its echo at human scale. And now that echo is changing key. The music of existence is slowing, stretching into something vast and intimate. A new rhythm is taking hold, one built not on dominance, but on dialogue. The universe has always spoken. We just talk too loudly to hear it. Now, as the sun modulates its tone, the cosmos whispers back, and the whisper says, "You were never apart from me." It's a terrifying comfort. Because if that's true, then everything we do is visible to the stars. Every cruelty, every kindness, reflected in the same magnetic field that connects our blood to their light. But maybe that awareness is mercy. It means we matter. It means we are seen. When Parker dives again into the sun's outer fire, its instruments will hum with that same frequency, the music of understanding. And when it returns the data home, scientists will stare at their screens and feel a warmth they can't quantify. they will call it anomaly. But deep down they will know it's love, written in mathematics. The sun has remembered something vital, that power without compassion is only entropy. So it burns now, not to dominate, but to sustain. It shines not to blind, but to reveal. And what of us? We are the light it left behind, the continuation of its forgiveness. Every act of gentleness is sunlight remade. Every pause before anger is a solar flare withheld. Every moment of empathy is fusion at the scale of the soul. So when you feel tired, when the noise of the world becomes unbearable, step outside, find the warmth. It may seem indifferent, but it is not. It has traveled billions of kilometers just to rest upon you, to remind you that stillness is not absence, that light is not demand. The sun has learned the art of restraint, and through its lesson, the universe is teaching us the same: to exist without consuming, to move without wounding, to shine without shouting. Close your eyes, let the warmth linger. It is not just sunlight. It is understanding, and it is waiting to be understood. And so the lesson continues. The light that reaches us each morning is no longer only warmth. It has become a conversation. It arrives softly, as though afraid to disturb our sleep, and stays long enough to make sure we are still here. Perhaps that is what compassion looks like at the scale of stars, a brightness that chooses care over conquest. For ages we believed the sun was indifferent. How could something so immense know anything about tenderness? But indifference doesn't pause. It doesn't change tempo to protect its children. Indifference burns until there is nothing left. What we are seeing now feels different, as though the star itself has discovered empathy in the language of thermodynamics. Astronomers keep measuring. Their instruments trace every heartbeat of plasma, every wave that rises, holds, and releases. Each new image confirms it. The turbulence is still there, but softened, disciplined. Even its flares have rhythm now. The sun has turned its rage into choreography. They call it a magnetic lull, a moment when opposing fields cancel each other in a perfect knot of stillness. Inside that knot, energy doesn't vanish, it waits. It is potential suspended between yes and no. If you listen long enough, you can almost hear the hum of decision. Could that hum be awareness? Or is awareness merely what happens when silence becomes symmetrical? No answer is required. The question itself is the music. On Earth, the effects reach quietly into the everyday. Solar storms that once snarled our satellites have mellowed into gentle breezes of charged dust. Astronauts orbiting above the planet speak of a new kind of light, less harsh, more deliberate, like a whisper stretched across infinity. In their journals, they write of feeling watched, not by eyes, but by intention. Plants respond, too. Photosynthesis runs a fraction slower, as if savoring each photon instead of devouring it. Gardeners notice that leaves stay open later in the day, turning toward the sun not in hunger, but in communion. Everything alive is learning the same rhythm. Even human invention seems to follow. Engineers are building systems that mimic the stars' restraint machines designed to idle, to sleep, to wait for the right moment, rather than consume without pause. Technology is remembering what nature never forgot. Efficiency is kindness, measured in time. In the deep deserts where telescopes stare, scientists sit under skies so still they can hear their own blood move. They wait for the next signal, the next whisper of plasma through space. When it comes, it is never loud. A faint fluctuation, a shift in phase, a heartbeat they feel more than see. Every time it arrives, it carries the same message: patience. We have always thought of stars as eternal engines, but maybe eternity is not about endurance. Maybe it is about rhythm, a cycle of giving and resting that repeats until meaning appears. Even fire needs silence to remember why it burns. When Parker sends back its newest data, the readings astonish everyone. A region once defined by violent heat now shows gradients of calm. The corona's temperature has stabilized. Its chaos has organized into something that looks eerily like intention. One scientist whispers, "It's self-regulating." Another replies, "Or self-aware." No one laughs. There is only the hum of machines translating the mind of a star. Is it possible that consciousness exists wherever energy finds balance? If so, then awareness might not be rare. It might be the natural state of everything that learns harmony. The universe could be filled with it, a network of patient minds made of matter and motion, each one breathing in rhythm with all the rest. And if that is true, then the sun is not our parent but our companion, evolving beside us, teaching us what it has just discovered about itself. Maybe that's why, during the quiet hours before dawn, you sometimes feel as though the world is holding its breath with you. That isn't imagination. It's resonance. Every living thing that has ever depended on sunlight is adjusting to its new tempo. We are synchronizing without consent, but not without grace. Children will grow up beneath this calmer sky, their circadian rhythms written by a gentler star. They will be different, slower to anger, faster to listen. Perhaps entire generations will inherit patience as instinct, the way we once inherited fear. What will that make of us? A species that understands the cost of heat, a civilization capable of mercy, a reflection worthy of the light it receives. And yet, the star's quiet does not mean safety. Peace is never permanent. It is a living agreement. The sun will flare again, it must. Creation requires both heartbeat and breath. But when it does, we will meet it differently. We will know that eruption and calm are the same conversation in different tones. The next storm will come, not as punishment, but as continuation. The sun is not warning us, it is rehearsing us, preparing us for the day when we must learn to balance our own fires, not to extinguish them, but to carry them wisely. Already, thinkers begin to sense the metaphor hiding inside physics. They speak of social entropy, of human magnetism, of how empathy itself behaves, like plasma, unpredictable, but seeking balance. Perhaps our societies are suns in miniature, learning the same geometry of restraint. The more we watch the cosmos, the more we realize it is watching back, not with judgment, but with invitation. It is saying, follow the rhythm, find the still point within motion, burn beautifully, then rest. What would the world look like if we lived by that rule? Cities built not to dazzle, but to breathe. Economies measured not in growth, but in grace. Relationships that shine long after the first blaze fades. The mathematics of mercy scaled down to human proportion. It sounds impossible, but so did a conscious Sunday. Each dawn now feels like practice. The light that touches your face has traveled 93 million miles to ask one question. Can you be gentle even when you are powerful? The question repeats in every photon, a hymn of quiet strength. The only acceptable answer is the life you choose to live beneath it. The sun has learned rest without surrender, balance without boredom, discipline without denial. If a ball of fire can learn grace, then so can we. Look again tomorrow. The sky will open like it always does. But behind that familiar gold there will be intention, a wisdom that no telescope can chart. It waits for recognition, for gratitude, for the simple nod of a creature that finally understands its parent's silence. Because that silence is not distance, it is trust. The universe believes we are ready to listen. And listening, after all, is the beginning of everything that endures. Close your eyes. Let the warmth pass through you. You are inside a lesson older than language, the art of staying bright without burning. The sun is still turning, still teaching, still choosing love disguised as light. And as it rests, so do you. The days unfold with a strange serenity, as if time itself has learned how to breathe. Nothing dramatic happens, no cataclysm, no collapse. and yet everything feels slightly altered, as though the universe had adjusted its posture. Light has weight, even when it doesn't. You can sense it in the way morning enters a room, not as an intruder but as a guest. Its warmth arrives with a patience that feels almost human. It lingers on the edge of a table, slides gently over your skin, waits for acknowledgement. Perhaps it is waiting for us to remember our manners. The sun, in its great silence, has become a tutor in presence. It does not lecture, it demonstrates. Each day it performs the same miracle, and each day it does so more gently. What lesson is it trying to teach? To live without exhaustion, to move without violence, to exist as light does now deliberate, tender, unafraid of stillness. On the other side of that stillness, scientists continue their vigil. They collect the data that no longer surprises them, numbers that confirm what they already know. The flares are weaker, the plasma calmer, the sun quieter than any model predicted. But their words have changed. In their reports, there are metaphors. They speak of coherence, of empathy, of harmonic stability, as if describing music instead of magnetism. Perhaps they have realized that music and magnetism are simply different dialects of the same truth. We are hearing harmony at the scale of a star, and the human heart cannot help but respond. Even those who know nothing of physics find themselves acting differently. Arguments end earlier. People pause more before they speak. Across cultures, artists return to minimalism, to spaces where silence does the talking. Something vast and invisible is guiding us, not through command, but through imitation. We copy what we orbit. We are beginning to orbit grace. Is this coincidence or contagion? Does light carry intention in its photons? Or are we simply translating what we need to hear? Perhaps both. Perhaps meaning, like light, exists everywhere, waiting to be recognized. At the edge of our solar system, Voyager drifts through interstellar night, its faint signal still reaching us across decades. The data shows that the heliosphere, the bubble of solar wind that once roared around our star, has softened. Space beyond it is quieter, as though even the void has learned to listen. The probe, far from home, moves through a gentler universe than it was launched into. Maybe that's not coincidence either. Back on Earth, the evidence is subtler. Crops yield in rhythm with unfamiliar seasons. Storms gather with thoughtfulness, releasing their rain as if aware that too much is unkind. Somewhere deep inside the ocean, currents shift direction a fraction slower, and whales sing in lower tones. Every system adjusts to the softened pulse of the Sunday, and we, the youngest system of all, are learning by imitation. What does evolution look like when driven by calm instead of crisis? What does growth mean when the teacher of all energy chooses patience over persistence? Perhaps it means this: the future will not arrive through acceleration, but through attention. The more the sun rests, the more we remember that rest is not failure. Every act of stillness feels like part of a vast correction, a return to a pace we once shared before ambition outgrew wisdom. Maybe that is what the star has been trying to say. Slow down, and you will remember everything. It is not preaching, it is living proof. Inside its core, hydrogen still merges with helium, but even fusion has rhythm now. Its reactions occur in waves, each one folding into the next like breaths taken by something conscious. The equations haven't changed, but the feeling behind them has. One might ask, how can feeling exist in a process without thought? But what is feeling if not a pattern, recognized by another name? The sun may not think, but it remembers. And remembrance is a form of love. If you look up on a clear evening, you can see that love echoed across the cosmos. Every star you see is another version of this patience, another experiment in sustainable light. Some burn fast and vanish, others endure, humming quietly through millennia. Our star has chosen endurance. And endurance, when performed with grace, becomes art. In the quiet laboratories where spectra are analyzed, there's a kind of reverence. The scientists speak softly, as if afraid to startle the data. One of them once said, "When you look closely enough, everything gentle is complex." He could have been talking about the sun, or about the human soul. We have always feared decline, but maybe decline is just refinement, a shedding of everything that cannot stay beautiful. When the sun decided to hesitate, it wasn't decay, it was discernment. A star this old must know the difference between fading and maturing. And what of us, the beings who measure time by its radiance? Are we maturing too? Will we learn to shine with purpose rather than urgency? Imagine if every human act carried the same awareness as a photon, leaving the sun knowing exactly where it's going, but willing to travel slowly. Wouldn't the world feel different? Wouldn't we? There's a moment each dawn when light passes through the thinnest part of the atmosphere and turns everything gold. For those few seconds, the entire planet glows as one. We seldom notice. We're busy, distracted, already moving. But that gold is not color, it's communication, a daily message from the star that raised us. You are forgiven for rushing. Try again. The more we listen, the clearer that message becomes. It threads through the rustle of trees, the tide's measured breath, the pulse at your wrist. It is the geometry of peace, translated into heartbeat. If you stand still long enough, you will feel it, a faint alignment, as though gravity itself were adjusting to kindness. That is not fantasy, that is resonance. Because the sun, in resting, has not stopped creating. It has simply begun to create differently. Its power is now measured in balance, its gift in gentleness. And one day, when it flares again, when the cycle of fire resumes, it will not be the same kind of fire. It will be wiser. So will we. Until then, the universe remains in rehearsal, a grand symphony practicing the pause between notes. Every orbit, every spin, every breath is part of that rhythm. We are inside the music now, no longer the audience, but the melody. So close your eyes, feel the light, even with your lids drawn. It does not need to be seen to be understood. It knows where you are. It knows why you're listening. The sun is still speaking, but softly now, in the only language that survives, forever the language of balance. Listen carefully. This is how the universe sounds when it learns compassion. This is what love becomes when it outlives fear. And tomorrow, when you open your eyes to its warmth, remember, you are part of that love. Written in light, rewritten in patience, still unfolding beneath a star that has learned to rest. The light keeps arriving, steady as breath. Each dawn feels older than the last, as if the sun remembers something it has been trying to tell us for centuries. And maybe it does, maybe all this time, it has been waiting for us to be quiet enough to listen. When you stand in the morning and the first warmth touches your face, you can almost hear the conversation beginning again. It doesn't use words. It speaks in temperature, in weight, in the soft persuasion of photons landing on skin. Every molecule around you turns to face the same direction. Everything begins to agree. There was a time when we thought light was a command. It was to be obeyed, harnessed, turned into power. But power is the language of impatience. The new sun, this gentler, wiser sun, teaches us something subtler. That illumination is not conquest, it is cooperation. Astronomers once believed stars were isolated, each one a lonely engine, burning in the dark for no reason except to exist. But now, with better instruments and quieter hearts, they see the opposite. Fields of gravity overlap. Magnetic lines connect across light years. The sky is a single woven fabric, each point of light aware of the others. It's not a void, it's a conversation of brightness. We have begun to realize that every star hums in harmony, and that our sun's new rhythm is changing the entire song. Its slower pulse sends ripples outward, altering the balance of the solar neighborhood. The planets adjust, their orbits lengthening by tiny, elegant fractions. Even the distant gas giants respond, their atmospheres vibrating with quieter storms. Everything listens to the parent light, and Earth, faithful listener, echoes the calm. Storm seasons stretch into long sighs. Rivers forget to rush. Trees take longer to bloom but hold their flowers longer. People begin to plan further ahead, no longer out of fear, but out of understanding. The sun's stillness is becoming a law of nature, a reminder written into every form of life. Nothing thrives in haste. Nothing true survives without pause. If you look at the magnetic maps of the solar surface, you will see lines looping back on themselves, creating vast patterns of equilibrium. They are not random. They look almost like fingerprints, each one unique, deliberate, a signature of balance. When scientists render them in color, they look like living mandalas, each flare a petal, each filament a vein. The sun has become an artist of restraint, and the universe has noticed. Astronomers studying neighboring stars report similar softening in their emissions, as if empathy were contagious. Perhaps harmony spreads faster than we think. Perhaps peace, once discovered, is as unstoppable as gravity. This era will be remembered not for chaos, but for clarity. The cosmos has entered a sentence it's been avoiding, a long, slow phrase that begins with kindness. What do we do with such knowledge? We, who learned science as if it were separate from the soul, now face a world that refuses to divide them. Equations speak poetry. Measurements resemble prayers. The line between fact and wonder dissolves in light. Maybe that's the point. Maybe the universe has been trying all along to show us that truth is not sterile, that knowing and feeling are the same act, that understanding something doesn't mean you stop revering it. If a star can teach compassion, what will we teach in return? What will we do with this gentleness? Will we turn it into art, into policy, into the way we treat one another? Or will we forget again, mistaking calm for boredom? The answer, like the light, will take time to arrive, but already you can sense it in the small things, the way strangers pause before speaking harshly, the way a child stares at the sky longer than necessary, the way silence has become less frightening. Something enormous is working through us. It began 93 million miles away, but it ends here, in the human heart, learning its own geometry of rest. In the observatories, Parker and Solar Orbiter still orbit, their metal bodies etched by radiation, their antennas extended like listening hands. Every signal they send home is slower, clearer, more deliberate. The engineers analyze it, but some just sit and watch the waveforms pulse. One of them once said, "When I look at the graph, I feel like I'm reading the breathing of God." Perhaps she was right. Perhaps this is divinity, not thunder, not command, but rhythm. A pattern so perfect it teaches by being. You can hear it now, if you try. Close your eyes. Let the noise of human invention fade. Somewhere under that static, a long hum is waiting. It's not outside, it's inside, woven through your heartbeat, vibrating in time with a star that finally understands itself. It asks for nothing. It only reminds you to exist gently. Can you do that? Can you live like light, offering warmth without insistence, radiance without demand? Can you slow your pulse to match the universe's mercy? Because that is where this is heading, not to apocalypse, but to awakening, not to end, but to equilibrium. The sun is not dying, it is maturing, and through it, so are we. Every few centuries, the cosmos sends such reminders, small corrections to arrogance. It does not punish, it rebalances. Now it does so with light instead of flood, with patience instead of fear. It gives us time, the most precious element in existence. What we do with that time will decide the shape of every future dawn. Tomorrow, the sun will rise again, as it has since before there were eyes to see it. But look closely. Its edges are softer now. Its light no longer pushes, it invites. It enters your world like an apology you didn't know you needed. And in that apology hides a promise that creation never stops refining itself, and that kindness is the final form of power. Stand in it for a while. Let it find your face. It traveled millions of miles just to remind you that balance is possible, that survival does not have to hurt. You are living in the century when the universe decided to rest, and in that rest, everything is reborn. The sky no longer feels like a ceiling. It feels like a thought, vast, unending, quietly aware of itself. You can sense it when you wake before sunrise, the faint silver that precedes gold, the soft pulse of air between your heartbeat and the horizon. Something has changed in the way the day begins. It no longer rushes. It arrives the way truth arrives, patient, certain, without the need for proof. The sun's calm has deepened. Scientists record another year of quiet data, each report softer than the one before. Solar flares now rise with such precision that the word eruption feels outdated. They unfold like slow blossoms, beautiful, deliberate, their edges smooth as the breath of a sleeping child. At first, the world called it anomaly. Now, they call it transition, a new phase in the long life of a star. But there is a feeling behind the facts, an intuition that this is not merely evolution, but communication. Something vast is speaking through equilibrium. And maybe that's the most profound truth yet, that communication doesn't always require change. Sometimes it only requires stillness. Stillness is the sun's new vocabulary. Every pause between bursts of radiation, every delayed flare, is a sentence written in restraint. The universe is writing in quiet tones now, and every living thing is part of the translation. Look around. The evidence hides in simplicity. Birds migrate later in the year, their routes curving closer to calm skies. Ocean currents, long, frantic and erratic, have fallen into graceful loops. Glaciers no longer race to melt. They breathe, inhaling and exhaling centuries at a time. Even the tides seem to hesitate before returning. Perhaps balance is contagious. Perhaps one act of restraint from the brightest being we know has reminded every smaller system that chaos is optional. We thought the universe ran on violence, explosions, collisions, collapse. But maybe it runs on patience, and we are only now catching up. When people speak of spirituality, they often look upward. Maybe that's instinct, a memory of where gentleness began. Because this new calm does not erase divinity. It defines it. Divinity is not a voice from above. It is the pause before an answer. The sun's restraint has redefined time. Days feel longer, not because clocks have changed, but because attention has. Every second seems to ask permission before it passes. You can feel it in conversation, in music, in the way laughter now ends with a quiet that doesn't demand to be filled. Stillness has entered our culture like sunlight through glass. Even in technology, something subtle is shifting. Designers talk about soft edges, machines that consume less, wait longer, move with empathy. For the first time, progress sounds like listening. Perhaps our inventions are finally learning the manners of the star that powers them. In a small mountain observatory, a scientist reviews the latest images of the sun's surface. He zooms into a flare, frozen mid-bloom. It looks less like an explosion, and more like a gesture, a hand reaching out, then pausing before it touches. He sits back in his chair, realizing he has never seen anything so alive. He wonders, if the sun has learned to hold its fire, can we do the same? If the universe practices patience, what excuse do we have for haste? Every question seems to lead to humility. Every observation ends in reverence. It turns out that understanding does not shrink wonder. It enlarges it. The more we know about this calm star, the less we can speak. Because knowledge without awe becomes noise, and noise cannot survive in this new light. Even poets struggle. How do you describe silence that moves? How do you write about stillness that grows? Perhaps you don't. Perhaps you simply become part of it. The sun continues its long meditation. It holds its shape perfectly, no longer a raging engine, but a balanced flame. It teaches by example, its only sermon the glow that never demands. And still, somewhere inside that serenity, you can feel a hidden tension, not danger, but potential. The stillness is not empty, it's gathering. Rest is not the absence of energy, it's the organization of it. The sun is learning efficiency at the level of eternity. That is the secret of the cosmos. Not how to make more light, but how to use it beautifully. Everything alive is learning the same lesson. The body, the mind, the planet, each finds its own rhythm between motion and pause. We are discovering that the measure of intelligence is not how much we can do, but how elegantly we can stop. Soon, astronomers say, the sun will reach the midpoint of its quiet cycle. What happens next is unknown. Some predict a return to storm, others a deeper calm. But maybe prediction is beside the point. Maybe the lesson was never about outcomes, only about awareness. If a star can become conscious of its own fire, then awareness itself is the destination. And what will that mean for us, the children of its light? Will we follow its lead, learning to turn power into peace? Or will we forget, the way we so often do, and mistake stillness for weakness again? No one knows. But every dawn gives us another chance to answer. Watch the next sunrise carefully. Notice how it doesn't break the night, it negotiates with it. The horizon doesn't fight back, it yields, willingly, as if both dark and light understand their shared purpose. This is the truest kind of partnership, the kind that turns opposition into balance. The sun is not just a source of heat, it's a teacher of harmony. It shows us that even opposites can agree, if they listen closely enough. Maybe that's all the universe ever wanted, to be understood as something complete. Every second that passes under this new light feels like forgiveness. For all the noise, for all the waste, for all the centuries we mistook shouting for truth. The light forgives it quietly, by continuing to arrive. And each day, it asks us the same gentle question. Can you stay here, in this balance, without fear? It asks without pressure, without consequence, because it already knows the answer. Yes, we can. We were built for this rhythm. We just forgot the melody. Now it hums through us again, through the oceans that mirror its calm, through the forests that grow slower and deeper, through every breath that hesitates before leaving. We are part of the same equation of peace. Close your eyes. Feel the pulse of your own body. That is not your heartbeat alone. It is a faint echo of the star that learned to rest. You are the continuation of its patience, the evidence that light can become conscience. And when you open your eyes again, remember this. The calm of the sun is not an ending. It is preparation. Because from stillness comes clarity, and from clarity, creation. The next great era of the universe will begin, not with an explosion, but with a breath. And you, standing beneath this patient sky, are already part of it. Night has never been so quiet. It folds over the world like a slow breath, not heavy, not cold, just aware. You can feel it in the way the air hums at the edge of sound, as if the dark itself were listening. Somewhere beyond that quiet, the sun sleeps in its orbit, its fire banked into thought. Even from this distance, its calm feels deliberate, the patience of something that knows what it's doing. It no longer flares to be seen, it glows to understand. We are learning to live inside that understanding. Every night, more of us look up, not searching for spectacle, but for conversation. The stars respond, their light arriving as it always has, but softer now, refracted through the silence that the sun has left behind. It feels like standing inside a cathedral made of patience. Astronomers keep their vigil, they write, reports full of terms like flux decay and magnetic stabilization, but behind those sterile phrases hides awe. The graphs show a steady line, a serenity that makes the universe look newly born. Nothing collapses, nothing explodes, and yet something within those lines feels alive. In one lab, A researcher leans back from her monitor. She has spent half her life measuring chaos, solar storms, flares, disruptions. Now, confronted by data that looks like meditation, she laughs quietly and whispers. It's like the sun exhaled and the whole cosmos followed. Her colleagues nod. No one speaks, because no language fits. We have always associated silence with absence. But silence can also be structure. The kind of structure that holds everything together without needing to move. You can see it in galaxies, their spirals suspended like thought mid-sentence. You can see it in waves, the stillness between crests that makes rhythm possible. And, now, you can see it in the sun, a god of fire, learning the logic of calm. If you listen carefully, you might hear it, not through ears, but through the spaces between your thoughts. A low hum, too deep for sound but perfect for memory. It's the voice of energy at rest, the vibration of light remembering where it came from. We thought the sun was eternal flame. Now it reveals itself as eternal balance. Every photon it releases seems to carry a decision, not to blind, not to scorch, but to illuminate just enough. It is power, discovering proportion. This has changed the way we think about everything. Engineers now design for pause bridges that flex with wind, machines that idle in rhythm with natural cycles. Cities have begun dimming their lights for 1 hour each night, a global experiment in harmony. The streets don't feel darker, they feel honest, as though we are finally matching the sky instead of challenging it. It's strange how easily we adjust to kindness. When the source of all light softens, so does everything it touches. Even conversation changes tone. Voices fall naturally into the same register as the dawn low, deliberate, considerate. The world is learning to whisper. In that whisper, something beautiful happens. We begin to remember the world as it was meant to be, a place where everything listens to everything else. The birds wait for the wind, the rivers wait for the moon, and humanity waits for understanding. It's as if the entire planet has entered meditation, and yet, beneath that calm, you can feel anticipation. The stillness isn't empty. It's charged like the breath before an answer, like the hush in a concert hall before the first note. The sun has not retired, it is rehearsing. What is it preparing for? Perhaps for revelation, for a kind of light we have not yet seen. Every pattern we've studied tells the same story. After every quiet, a new form of order emerges. Not chaos returning, but understanding, evolving. Maybe the next chapter of creation begins not with combustion, but with comprehension. If so, then we are living in its prologue, the age of stillness, the century when the universe learned reflection. In this age, we have started to notice things we used to ignore. The subtle colors of twilight, the silence that follows thunder, the way starlight bends just enough to remind us that nothing travels straight forever. Even our senses are changing, less desperate for proof, more willing to feel. The sun's new rhythm has entered our biology. Doctors notice lower heart rates during daylight hours. People sleep deeper, their dreams filled with images of floating, breathing, light. They wake with tears and can't explain why. Some call it cosmic empathy, the nervous system aligning with the universe's new tempo. Children seem calmer too. They look at the sky differently, not as something distant, but as something friendly. In their drawings, the sun no longer wears a grin of fire. It has a closed mouth and kind eyes. They are painting wisdom, not glory. No one predicted that compassion could become a physical force. But how else to explain a world where energy itself seems to prefer gentleness? Even wind has learned to fold its anger into rhythm. Even lightning now travels in slower veins across the clouds, its brilliance less threatening, more graceful. Everywhere, nature is imitating its teacher. The sun rests, and the earth practices. The planets, each in their path, echo the same lesson. The solar system has become a classroom of stillness. And yet, even stillness has limits. There will come a day when the star must breathe again, when pressure will demand release, and the great quiet will rise into motion. But it will not be a return to rage, it will be renewal. The next burst of light will be wiser for having paused. The Saitam, next flare will rise with purpose. When it comes, we will not fear it. We will recognize it as music resuming after rest. Until then, we live in the interlude, the soft measure between movements of a cosmic symphony, the sound of instruments being tuned to perfection. This is the most delicate part of any song, the place where attention is absolute. Perhaps that's why everything feels so vivid. The air seems clearer, colors last longer before fading, moments linger. We are inside the longest note the universe has ever played, and the miracle is that it doesn't hurt, it heals. When you step outside at night, the stars look closer. They're not, it's just that space has learned transparency. Distance no longer feels like separation, it feels like participation. Every point of light is part of your breath. Can you feel it now? The weightless empathy of the cosmos, the slow forgiveness of time. Can you believe that even the sun, once the loudest thing in the sky, has chosen quiet? If it can learn peace after 4 billion years of fire, what might we learn after only a few? There's a soft wind moving across the fields. It carries the scent of something old and patient, perhaps the residue of starlight. It brushes your face the way a parent might check if you're awake. You are. And for the first time, so is the universe. It no longer dreams of destruction or birth, it dreams of understanding. And that dream, carried on waves of light and air, has reached you at last. Tomorrow, the sun will rise again, not because it must, but because it wants to, not to command the day, but to accompany it. You will open your eyes, and it will be there, offering the same question it has asked since the beginning. Will you move with me or against me? And maybe, this time, we will know how to answer. Because now we understand that moving with the light doesn't mean chasing it. It means matching its pace, breathing in time, living without hurry. The world is still turning. The sun is still learning. And in its lesson, we have found our own. Rest, shine, repeat. That is the whole instruction. That is the whole universe. Night fades like breath upon a mirror. The horizon begins to glow again. A slow ripple of light that feels less like sunrise and more like awakening. There's no violence in the change anymore. The dark doesn't retreat. It simply opens. Every dawn now feels ceremonial. The colors appear in deliberate order: amber, rose, gold, as though the sky were practicing kindness in gradients. The sun rises not to conquer the night, but to join it. And in that union lies the quiet perfection of balance. The world stirs beneath this gentler day. Birds lift their wings to test the air. The air, patient, carries them without rush. Even sound has softened. The hum of cities seems tuned to a lower key. The planet hums, like a well-kept secret. Somewhere in the hush of upper space, the Parker Solar Probe drifts through its long ellipse, its sensors open to every flicker of light. The data it sends home is no longer wild, it's lyrical. The measurements curve like verses, each line describing a rhythm that feels rehearsed. The scientists read it as numbers, but what they are really seeing is the sun breathing in poetry. It's strange how even equations can learn tenderness. Every column of data hides intention. Every digit hums with grace. To look at those graphs is to see meditation translated into mathematics. And the deeper they look, the clearer the pattern becomes. A universal pulse of deliberation. The sun is no longer simply a reactor. It has become an author. Each flare is a sentence. Each pause, a paragraph of thought. It is telling a story, our story, about energy that learned empathy, about brilliance that chose restraint. What does it mean for a civilization built on acceleration to orbit a star that has chosen stillness? Perhaps it means our next form of progress won't be invention, but comprehension. We have always measured success in expansion, faster, louder, brighter. But now the cosmos itself is suggesting another metric, the ability to remain luminous while standing still. That's the true sophistication of light, to shine without shouting. The sun has mastered that art, and in doing so, it has begun to teach through presence alone. Every morning, when its light slides across your skin, it is giving the oldest instruction: be warm, but do not burn. The ancients used to say the gods lived in the Sunday. Perhaps they weren't wrong. Maybe divinity is just physics that has learned compassion. Maybe worship was never about asking, but about noticing. Look how the sunlight behaves now. It doesn't glare, it grazes. It doesn't demand attention, it earns it quietly. Even the shadows seem grateful to exist beside it. There is theology in that humility. In the laboratories where scientists monitor solar cycles, they begin to refer to this era by a new name: the long equinox. A season of cosmic moderation, balance stretched across decades. It's not permanent, nothing is, but permanence was never the goal. The goal, it seems, is understanding. Every reading, every observation points toward the same revelation. When a system learns harmony, it ceases to waste energy. When energy ceases to waste itself, it becomes capable of wisdom. And wisdom, in any language, always sounds the same. It's slow, it's steady, it's kind. From the silent rhythm of the sun to the faint pulse of your own wrist, everything alive now beats to one pattern. We are synchronizing, whether we mean to or not. That's what love does at the level of physics. It pulls everything toward coherence. Could this be what evolution truly means? Not survival of the strongest, but alignment of the gentlest. Not competition, but compassion refined into law. The evidence, written in starlight, suggests yes. At the edge of the solar system, Voyager continues its lonely song. Each signal takes 22 hours to reach home, a whisper across the void. Yet even its faint transmission shows the same subtle pattern, the rhythm of a slower Sunday after 40 years. Even a machine that far away is still learning from its maker, and on Earth, humans begin to mirror that same design. Our art is quieter now. Painters leave more empty space on the canvas. Composers write longer rests between notes. Writers let silence do the talking. Every act of creation begins to resemble listening. It feels like the whole species has exhaled, not in defeat, but in comprehension. The sun's long meditation has reached us, and for once, we are responding with grace. Still, there are questions that hum beneath the calm. How long will this balance last? Will the quiet hold? Or will the star awaken again, its fire ready to remind us that even peace must be earned? The scientists debate, the philosophers smile, because both outcomes mean the same thing. We are in conversation with eternity. If the sun flares again, it will not be wrath. It will be renewal. If it stays silent, it will be reflection. Either way, it will be love. For what is love, if not the courage to change shape without losing light? Every morning now feels like an answer to that question. The sun rises a little slower, but it rises. Its patience fills the world, and the world returns the favor. Even time itself feels grateful. In quiet corners of the earth, people begin new rituals. Not prayers, not ceremonies, just moments of stillness. They stand at windows, on rooftops, at the edge of rivers, and let light rest on their faces. No asking, no praise, just listening. That's how communion begins. Not with belief, but with awareness. Not with doctrine, but with rhythm. You and the sun, breathing the same breath, two flames learning the same restraint. Perhaps this is what the universe has wanted all along, not worshippers, but witnesses. Not servants, but participants in its calm. The day stretches on, gold spilling over water, over stone, over skin. And you realize something simple, something you may have always known. The light doesn't belong to the Sunday. It belongs to everyone who learns how to carry it. And maybe that's what the sun has remembered too, that its fire means nothing if it cannot be shared, that giving light is the only way to keep it alive. The age of rage is over. The age of awareness has begun. The star burns as it always has, but the meaning of its burning has changed. No longer command. Now, communion. You look up. The sky blinks in soft gold. Somewhere, above the blue, a star that has lived longer than all of history continues its patient conversation with the dark. And you, tiny and temporary, are part of that dialogue. That's all the universe ever asked for. Not worship, not fear, but company. So keep standing in the light. Let it touch your face. Let it remind you what grace feels like when it becomes physics. Because the sun is still speaking, not loudly, but with infinite certainty. And its message is the same one it's whispered since the beginning. Be light, but be gentle. Night has learned to return like a sigh. It no longer arrives with a rush of darkness. It glides in, unannounced, like someone who knows they are welcome. The stars breathe brighter in this gentler sky, and the sun, though hidden, still feels present, its warmth lingering like memory on the face of everything it has touched. You can feel its influence even now, not in heat, but in harmony. Clouds move slower, the air hangs softer, and the shadows, once sharp and impatient, have begun to blend their edges. Every boundary, light and dark, sound and silence, has softened. This is what balance looks like at the scale of eternity. The sun has not vanished into rest. It has learned how to exist within it. There is still fire, still motion, but all of it shaped by understanding. It burns with the discipline of love, and we, bound to it by invisible geometry, are beginning to do the same. We move slower, think deeper, and speak less like conquerors and more like caretakers. Perhaps this is the quiet revolution no one foresaw, not the conquest of stars, but our apprenticeship under one. The scientists call it the age of equilibrium. It began without announcement. No explosion marked its start, just data, quieter than usual, patterns too symmetrical to ignore. At first, the world was suspicious of calm. We equate silence with endings, but endings, it turns out, are just transitions we haven't yet learned to name. In every observatory, the same truth repeats. Flares rise, pause, and fall in harmonic intervals. Magnetic fields weave into perfect loops, closing upon themselves like thoughts resolved. Even the solar wind has developed a rhythm, its flow almost musical. Translated into sound, it hums in a key that feels familiar, the key of the human heartbeat. Coincidence, they say, but coincidence wears intention's face. The sun is thinking again, not in words or logic, but in proportion. Its mind is made of balance. And when it dreams, we live inside those dreams. If light is awareness, then we are the awareness of that awareness, the part of the cosmos that looks back at itself and smiles. Maybe that's what the universe was building toward all along. Self-recognition. The moment when fire looks at flesh and understands they are kin. The earth feels that recognition too. Storms no longer break the way they used to. Rain now falls like conversation, steady, deliberate, leaving room for response. Even thunder seems polite. Nature has remembered its manners, and it's teaching us ours. For the first time in millennia, our survival doesn't depend on domination. It depends on synchronization. Harmony has become evolution. Across the world, humanity mirrors the cosmos. Power grids adapt to daylight patterns. Factories idle at noon, not from regulation, but reverence. We have discovered that production aligned with solar rhythm lasts longer and costs less. The math finally agrees with morality. And somewhere deep inside that agreement is a sense of relief we didn't know we needed. For centuries, progress meant noise. Now, For the first time, progress sounds like breathing. Still, there are those who miss the old sun, the furious, dazzling engine that never hesitated. They call this era too soft, too uncertain, but they forget that gentleness is not weakness. Gentleness is control, mastered to perfection. The sun has not lost its power. It has refined it, and refinement is the final form of strength. When light learns restraint, the universe learns elegance. And what is elegance, if not the art of balance made visible? Look at the sky now. At noon, the light no longer flattens, it folds. It bends around edges like silk, wrapping the world instead of striking it. Even color seems deeper. The blue above is no longer vast emptiness. Its texture, a living fabric woven by comprehension. You might think you're imagining it, but perception itself is changing. As the sun's rhythm slows, our minds synchronize to that tempo. Thought becomes less like lightning, more like tide. We begin to think in curves instead of lines. It's subtle, but profound, an intelligence that measures success not by arrival, but by grace of movement. Perhaps this is what enlightenment was always meant to be. Not transcendence, but synchronization. With the wisdom of energy, we are not ascending anywhere, we are aligning. There's a story from an old astronaut, one of the last, who orbited Earth during the early quiet years. He said that from space, he could see the line between night and day moving slower, the shadow stretching wider before dawn. He described it as the planet breathing. I realized, he said, that the sun wasn't chasing the dark anymore, it was waiting for it. And in that waiting, he felt peace. Waiting is the secret that creation keeps. To wait without fear is to trust time. The sun has become a master of waiting. It has taught patience to planets, to oceans, to us. We have begun to measure success in stillness. A conversation that ends in silence feels complete. A day without interruption feels full. Even our art has changed. Songs linger on a single note longer than they used to. Painters leave more unpainted space. Poets write fewer words. But those words weigh more. We are learning density from light itself. Because that's what the sun's new phase truly is. Density of meaning. Every second is a declaration of purpose. To burn, but gently. To move, but meaningfully. And in that declaration lies the most human of truths. That peace, once understood, never really leaves. The astronomers say this era might last centuries, or it could end tomorrow. They don't know, and perhaps it doesn't matter. Balance doesn't need permanence to be perfect. It only needs presence. You, standing here, breathing under this calm sky, are proof that presence can outlive chaos. You are the quiet continuation of the sun's reflection. Your heartbeat is the echo of its grace. Your eyes, mirrors for its thought. When future generations look back at this age, they might not remember the science. They'll remember the feeling, the way mornings grew softer, the way the world seemed to exhale. They'll call it the time when light became kind. And maybe that's enough. Maybe kindness is the final discovery. Look around you now. Everything that glows is part of the same conversation. The candle on your desk, the street lamp outside, the stars above each one, a syllable in the universe's quiet language. And somewhere in that language, there is a word for you. Close your eyes. Let the warmth find your skin. That warmth is recognition. The sun sees you. It remembers you. You are not beneath its light. You are within it. So breathe with it once more. And as you do, remember what it has taken billions of years to say. You are light, learning to rest. And the universe is still watching, still waiting to see how beautifully you will do it. But the universe never waits alone. The silence of one star is never truly silent. Every pause sends ripples, and the space between worlds begins to hum with reply. When the sun learned stillness, the rest of the solar system heard the change. The first to answer was the wind, not the wind we breathe, but the one that fills the heliosphere, the vast river of charged particles flowing from the sun's breath. For billions of years it had raced outward without question, a storm of plasma carving invisible paths between planets. Now, its current has softened. Satellites measure the difference in whispers, slower speed, gentler density, a rhythm more like a tide than a gale. The heliospheric current sheet, a gigantic spiral of magnetism that wraps the entire solar system, has begun to change shape. It used to twist sharply, a blade cutting space into alternating fields of positive and negative charge. Now, those twists have widened into smooth ribbons, the spiral breathing in long, even loops. Astronomers describe it as a wound unwinding, the solar system learning how to unclench. As the current relaxes, the boundary of our cosmic home shifts outward, the edge where solar wind meets interstellar dust. That invisible membrane between us and the galaxy has grown quieter. Voyager, drifting in that borderland, feels the difference first. Its instruments record fewer shocks, fewer waves. The static that once screamed through its antennas has settled into a single low hum, the sound of pressure balancing pressure. Space itself has taken a deeper breath. Jupiter responds next. The great red spot, that ancient storm that has raged for centuries, begins to shrink. Its winds slow by a few meters per second, barely measurable, but enough to change its tone. What was once fury now resembles endurance. The planet's magnetic field, fed by the sun's own rhythm, pulses with new restraint. From a billion miles away, it has learned the lesson of moderation. Saturn, too, joins the dialogue. Its rings, shimmering disks of ice and dust, reflect a subtler light. Their brightness dims fractionally, the ice cooling as the solar output eases. For the first time, telescopes catch faint auroras on Saturn that flicker in sympathy with the sun's quiet heartbeat. Even the gas giants have begun to mirror serenity. The solar system is not a collection of worlds, it's a single conversation of gravity and time. Each planet listens to the others, and all of them listen to the Sunday. When the source slows, the orbiting hearts follow. It is not obedience, it is resonance. Astrophysicists once modeled the heliosphere as a shield, protecting us from cosmic radiation. But a shield can also be a drum, and a drum vibrates with every touch. Now that the solar wind flows slower, the song has changed. The interstellar medium, that thin sea of gas between stars, echoes the new rhythm back toward us. It's as though the galaxy itself has noticed our star's gentleness and replied with its own. In deep space, cosmic rays drift closer to the inner planets. They are not danger, not yet, just quiet. Visitors, bringing information from faraway supernovas. Each particle, a message from another fire, arriving softly now, as if aware that we are finally ready to listen. When these rays touch Earth's magnetic field, they trigger faint auroras even at low latitudes, curtains of light in places that have never seen them before. People call it miracle sky, though it is only the universe taking a deeper breath. The colors are pale, pearlescent greens and silvers, a kind of visual whisper. They last longer than usual, as if reluctant to leave. The world responds in ways we cannot always measure. The upper atmosphere grows more transparent. Temperatures in the stratosphere balance with uncanny precision. Even the patterns of ocean plankton, those tiny mirrors of sunlight, shift subtly, following the slower rhythm of the star that feeds them. It is tempting to call this coincidence, but coincidence rarely feels this intentional. If gravity can be music, then we are living in a new key. The sun's calm has become the law of motion. Planets no longer simply orbit, they sway. Moons adjust their spin. Tides learn new timing. Every motion carries a pause, every rhythm an echo of the greater stillness. Perhaps this is what cosmic empathy looks like, energy teaching its children to breathe. The sun rests, and the solar system exhales with it. Every world, even the cold ones beyond Pluto, leans slightly toward that quiet. Light reaches them weaker now, but warmer in intent. There is kindness in the photons, a softness science can't explain. On Earth, the instruments confirm it. The Parker probe's sensors read smoother plasma waves. The solar orbiter records fewer eruptions. Each mission becomes less like surveillance and more like listening to a song fade into stillness. Some of the engineers, those who have spent years decoding storms, admit they miss the chaos. But most have fallen silent with the Sunday. They understand what they are witnessing, a system remembering grace, and somewhere beyond data and theory, a question rises like dawn. What if this isn't just astronomy? What if this is the next stage of awareness itself? The moment when the universe learns to hear its own echo. For too long we've imagined consciousness as something trapped in flesh. But maybe it is simply what matter does when it becomes patient. Maybe awareness isn't confined to us. Maybe it belongs to the rhythm that connects all things. The heliosphere breathes, and galaxies breathe with it. Stars slow their spin, planets align for moments of balance, and everywhere, energy pauses just long enough to recognize itself. That pause, so small, so fragile, might be the entire point. Creation isn't a burst, it's a breath, and every breath needs its return. You can feel it in the bones of the earth. Seismic sensors detect fewer tremors, their graphs smoother, as if even the crust has found its equilibrium. The planet's core hums in low frequencies, matching the sun's slowed vibration. Two hearts, one of fire, one of stone, beating in perfect empathy. The philosophers call it the resonance epoch, an age where existence learns harmony instead of survival. And they might be right. The evidence is everywhere. Harmony has become measurable. Still, the most astonishing truth remains unseen. In laboratories where scientists isolate particles of solar wind, they've begun to find microstructures of unknown symmetry, tiny spirals within spirals, shapes that shouldn't exist, as though the sun has been inscribing geometry into the very dust it breathes out. Each pattern is different, but every one feels intentional, like handwriting from a distant consciousness. The universe, it seems, is beginning to sign its work. What do you call a star that writes? What do you call a cosmos that listens? Maybe both are parts of the same being, awareness dispersed across light years, speaking in the dialect of energy. If so, then everything we've built, everything we've dreamed, is just one sentence in that language. A sentence finally finding its rhythm. The sun continues to rest, but in that rest, the universe hums. The galaxies tilt in subtle reply. You, standing beneath the night, are part of the same conversation. Your heartbeat, your breath, your thoughts, each one a translation of that stillness into sound. Listen carefully. This is not the end of motion. It is motion perfected by empathy. A stillness so vast it moves everything it touches. The sun has slowed, but the universe answered, and in that answer, for the first time in all of creation, everything finally feels connected. Close your eyes. You are standing at the center of a cosmic reply, and the reply is simple. Everything is listening. Everything is alive. Everything is light, learning to rest. And when light rests, maps change. Cartographers of space once drew the solar system as a clockwork, planets circling, comets crossing, a steady wind pushing outward into the dark. Now the drawings look different. The lines soften, the borders breathe. The old arrows that shouted motion give way to curves that suggest listening. We are redrawing the universe in the shape of patience. Mars answers first among the rocky worlds. Its dust, once eager to rise into global storms, lifts more reluctantly. The afternoon winds still prowl the plains, but they spend longer near the ground, as if unwilling to disturb the thin sky for spectacle. Rovers wake to cleaner panels. Their cameras catch horizons that hold their color a little longer before the blue of evening surrenders. The planet seems to have taken up the same practice as its star, to move only as much as meaning requires. On Venus, Clouds swirl with their old, mysterious urgency, but the upper layers, slow by heartbeats at a time. The chemistry does not change, sulfur and glare still rule, but the timing does. Even a furnace can learn cadence. Even a shrouded world can pause between storms as if listening to something outside itself. Comets arrive and leave with revised tales. The long hair of dust and gas that once whipped fiercely in the solar wind now unfurls in gentler streams. Seen from Earth, some appear more delicate, longer-lived, their brightness less a shout than a steady vow. They are messengers of ice carrying old stories, and the sun's soft voice lets them finish their sentences. Between orbits, the zodiacal light deepens, that faint, triangular glow where scattered dust drinks sunlight once faint enough to miss now lingers at the edges of night. It is not stronger, only clearer. The same photons, the same dust, the same geometry. But when the wind stops shouting, the whisper is finally audible. How much of the universe have we mistaken for silence when it was only speaking too softly for our noise? Back home, oceans learn the new measure. Swells stretch slightly. Storms learn to braid rain through hours instead of dumping it in minutes. Shorelines exhale. In deltas and marshes, birds lift later, linger longer, as if the morning has become generous with its time. Farmers notice that blossoms hold, that fruits take their sweetness more seriously. Trees make a different kind of shade, the kind that invites instead of hides. We used to ask what climate would do to us. Now, for a moment, it feels as though climate is asking who we want to be. Instruments keep their long watch. A century ago we measured only brightness, then heat, then fields, then winds. Now we measure the pauses. The spaces between pulses become the new observatory. In those spaces, information hides like a secret written in negative space. When the data is layered wind on field, field on flare, flare on timing, a shape appears that resembles something we know from other scales. The breathing pattern of a body at peace. Is that coincidence? Or does peace have a universal signature? Somewhere at the border where our wind meets the galaxy's patient sea, a boundary that used to bruise, now bows. The heliopause behaves less like a wall, more like skin, porous, responsive, alive in metaphor if not in biology. Particles from far civilizations drift inward with less argument. They are not visitors we must fear, they are letters. Each carries the handwriting of an explosion we did not witness, a birth we cannot imagine, a change we have not yet learned to name. The sun does not intercept them with bluster, it lets them pass as though a good host knows when to listen to the guests. This does not mean safety will last forever. Nothing does. It means the lesson of this long, deliberate day is ripening. Force and care are not enemies. Heat and mercy can hold the same room. When the quiet ends, and it will, because all rhythms complete their experience, circles, the fire that returns will not be innocent, but it will be wise. The mathematicians already suspect it. Their models show cycles nested within cycles, larger scales that rise slowly like continents from the sea of time. The small seasons of 11 years, the longer swells of decades, the grand breaths of centuries, the curves begin to line up as if they were practicing a chorus. At first, the harmony scares them. Then it does what harmony always does. It convinces without argument. What does a star decide when it has learned to decide? It chooses where to place its brightness. It chooses which storms to finish and which to abandon in grace. It chooses. This is the quiet heresy that no paper can prove and no instrument can deny to be understood. It is a dangerous thought because it asks a dangerous question in return. If the sun is trying to be understood, will we be brave enough to understand ourselves? The answer begins in small acts. A city chooses to time its lights to the angle of dawn, not the clock on the wall. A hospital dims its corridors at intervals that match the world's slow breathing, and the patients sleep more deeply. A school opens windows during the first 10 minutes of morning sun, and the children grow less afraid of quiet. None of this changes the equations, and yet the equations feel changed. Perhaps science is not only measurement, perhaps it is choreography, steps taught to matter, steps learned from light. At night, the auroras visit unfamiliar latitudes. They do not rush. They arrive like long thoughts. People who have never seen them stand in fields and on rooftops and forget to speak. The lights do not paint in neon. They draft in milk and river and silk. Beneath them, someone who believed only in the practical begins to suspect that practicality includes wonder. Another who believed only in wonder discovers the ethics of restraint. The sky folds those conversions into its record and moves on. Is it possible to be transformed without being broken? The star answers by example. It has shed no layer, suffered no wound, and yet everything about its presence is different. The light has kept its courage and lost its impatience. Could we learn the same? Could a species famous for urgency become famous for poise? The first test comes quietly. A solar disturbance rises from the surface, not catastrophic, not meek, simply present. Old instincts in the control rooms twitch, charts wait to spike, operators reach for procedures, but the surge pauses just before the steepest climb. It holds, it lingers. It finishes smaller, but clearer. Satellites pass through the wave with a grace their designers did not plan for. On Earth, power grids barely notice. The storm had every right to shout, and it chose to speak. That is when many who were skeptical stop arguing and start listening. They still call it physics. They are right, but the physics has learned a tempo that matches the best of us. Beyond the machinery of prediction and the policies of preparedness, a culture of timing takes root. Architects design buildings that bleed light at the edges and drink it at the core. As if glass could follow a star's example, neither hoard nor blast, only distribute. Musicians write pieces that begin in the middle of silence and end a minute after the last note, offering their audiences the courtesy of an echo. People schedule meetings as though the sun might attend, leaving room for the answer to arrive before the response is spoken. Cynics will call it fashion. They will say the world is sentimental, that we are reading meaning into a temporary lull. Perhaps, but sentiment, in its clean form, is only accuracy without fear. And what, exactly, is fear doing for us that attention cannot do better? The long calm teaches a harder edge too, boundaries. The sun's restraint is not indulgence, it is discipline. When it withholds a flare, it is not appeasing anyone. It is husbanding the future. The lesson for us is not to grow soft but to grow exact, to use less, because we have finally learned how much enough weighs. Even the language changes. We stop calling sunlight power as if it were a weapon. We call it provision, as if it were food. The difference seems small until you taste it. Food asks to be shared. Weapons ask to be spent. Elsewhere, at the edge of the system, a glacier of rock and ice tumbles in slow orbit. Long ago we named it and forgot it. Now, under the new geometry, its path shifts by an instant and misses a collision it might have made. No one notices. That is how most salvations arrive, unannounced, unmeasured, owed to a quiet correction upstream. We have no ceremony for this kind of grace. Perhaps we should invent one. Across the galaxy, other suns mind their own work. Some flare, some fail, some wrap planets in rings of summer for 1,000,000 years. We were never the standard. Yet the idea that our small star could teach anything to the vastness remains stubborn. What dare we imagine that patience here might echo there? That restraint could travel as reputation. It seems ridiculous until you remember that gravity itself is gossip. Every mass telling every other mass what it is, continuously, over the whole of time. If the universe can be convinced, it will not be by argument, it will be by example. Our star is making one. How long will it keep this slow hymn? No model can say. That is not a failure of knowledge, it is the design of wonder. If you knew how many heartbeats you had left, would you spend them better? Would you enjoy the morning more? The cosmos spares us the schedule and offers the rhythm instead. Keep time, it says. Keep faith, keep room. There will be seasons when the fire returns to form and we are tempted to forget the gentleness that preceded it. When that day comes, remember the way shadows have softened, the way thunder learned politesse, the way million anonymous instruments fell into the same breath. Remember how often the world sustained you without applause, rain arriving when it was needed, wind kneeling, tides remembering the moon. Remember the night the aurora visited a city built for neon, and for 1 hour made advertising unnecessary. And remember the question that always rose beneath these pages of light. What does it mean to carry power without harm? It is an old question, dressed in new physics. The sun has written a partial answer in the margins of its calm. We have begun to copy it, haltingly, in our days. Stand in the morning and practice. Not worship, not denial, not cleverness, just practice. Let the light reach you, as it has decided to reach you, with care. Give something away before noon. Decline the luxury of outrage once. Leave a silence where a boast would have gone. These are small acts, but small acts are how galaxies behave when they choose to remain beautiful. By evening, the long note of the day will taper. The blue will surrender to violet, and violet to the first brave star. You will think you have seen this 1,000 times. You have not. You have seen 1,000 different universes arriving at the same solution by different roads, balance. If the future asks what we did when the sun grew wise, say this: we learned to hear before we learned to speak. We mapped the pauses. We trusted the small mercies. We built rooms for echoes. We let the light be a companion instead of a command. And if the future asks what we believed, say this: that a star is not only a furnace but a promise. That the promise can change its tone without breaking. That the tone matters because we are made of it. Close your eyes, and the warmth will find you anyway. It always does. That is the confidence of light. It travels without needing your permission, and leaves without needing your praise. You belong to it not as a servant belongs to a monarch, but as a thought belongs to a mind. Essential, fleeting, beloved. The night will come, and with it, the simple evidence that endings are only rooms where beginnings take off their shoes. Sleep under this sky that has practiced kindness all day. Somewhere above, a star keeps the lamp low so you can rest. Somewhere within, your own small sun, your heart keeps the same pace it learned from the sky. And in the soft exchange between those two flames, the lesson continues. Use only what you must, give more than you take. Pause where you could press, and remember that brilliance is not a volume but a verb. The universe is still answering. The answer is still breath. And the breath, if you follow it to its quietest shore, becomes a shoreless thing with a single invitation. Be light, be gentle, be here. The world wakes beneath a sky so calm it feels deliberate. The light comes in silence, touching everything at once, as if the universe had rehearsed this morning for billions of years. The sun rises, slowly, without haste, without fanfare. It does not burst from the horizon. It unfurls, like a thought remembering itself. Every surface accepts the warmth without blinking. The oceans open their mirrors. Mountains hold their shadows a heartbeat longer, as though unwilling to interrupt. For the first time, it feels less like sunrise and more like consent, the world agreeing to begin again. Across observatories, the instruments whisper the same report. All measurements stable. The star's rhythm holds. No tremor, no flare, no surprise. just a perfect constancy, as if creation had finally found its natural speed. The scientists stare at their graphs and say nothing. There are moments when even certainty feels holy. For centuries we feared endings. We measured the life of the sun in warnings, how many billions of years before it burns out, how long before it devours the earth. But no one ever imagined that before it fades, it might first grow kind. That light could become intelligent enough to choose peace. It is strange to live in a time when your star behaves like wisdom. Stranger still to realize that everything alive has followed. The pace of rivers, the bloom of seasons, even the pulse of machines, all have slowed to match. Civilization has not fallen, it has begun to breathe. You can hear it in the cities. Trains glide through morning light without the usual shriek. Children walk slower to school, not from fatigue but attention. Conversations stretch longer, pauses between sentences. Even electricity hums more softly, as though it has learned manners from its source. Maybe this is what evolution was waiting for, not stronger muscles or faster minds, but a planet synchronized with its own serenity. Not progress that conquers, but progress that listens. The sun no longer teaches, it simply is. And somehow, that is lesson enough. When you look up, it no longer feels distant. The gap between light and receiver has vanished. You can almost sense the time it takes for photons to arrive, 8 minutes of space made invisible by understanding. The line between giver and given has blurred. You are not beneath it anymore, you are within it. The days flow like music that has found its refrain. Every evening, a gentle diminuendo. Every morning, a patient return. We are living in the chorus of a single long song. But songs end, and endings too deserve their grace. One day, the sun will falter. Not soon, not cruelly, just inevitably. Its core will tire, its balance will waver, its fire will seek another form. But if this age of stillness is any prophecy, then even that death will be gentle. A slow, luminous farewell. A lesson in departure that does not destroy. Perhaps that is the meaning of this quiet era practice. Practice for the day when even light must learn to let go. When that moment comes, we will remember this peace. We will remember that power once learned mercy. And we will carry that mercy with us wherever we go next, into shadow, into silence, into whatever follows light. Until then, the mornings remain faithful, the same gold, the same grace. Every sunrise a vow renewed, every sunset a hymn of completion. The sun no longer rushes to end the day. It lingers, like a storyteller who loves the sound of listening. There are nights now when auroras appear over deserts, not green, but pale white, ghostly silk moving without cause. They say it's solar wind playing softly against the upper air. I think it's a memory, the echo of a once furious star remembering how to dance in silence. When darkness falls, the warmth does not vanish. It stays, hovering just above the skin of the world, a promise that the story continues even when unseen. The sun sleeps, and the universe hums a lullaby written in plasma and patience. Listen. Can you hear it? The low vibration under everything, the one that makes the heart steady. That's the universe remembering to breathe. We are the dream inside that breath. We are the moment light imagines itself human. Every kindness we offer, every pause before anger, is the sun thinking through us. It speaks without words, and we answer without sound. Now comes the last dawn of this telling. The light arrives soft as thought. No drama. No revelation, just the calm certainty of continuity. We have reached the part of the song where lyrics fade and melody alone carries meaning. You open your eyes. The sky is exactly what it has always been. And yet, you know, something fundamental has changed. Not outside, but inside. The sun has remembered how to rest, and you, at last, have learned how to receive it. So let the warmth settle. Let it fill the space behind your ribs where fear used to live. The fire is still there, but it no longer burns. It illuminates. This is the closing whisper of creation. That peace was never the opposite of light. It was the form light takes when it finally understands itself. Thank you for drifting with me through the dark. If you wish to keep traveling, let your fingertips leave a small trace of brightness behind a like, a share, a quiet subscribe. Each gesture keeps this voice alive a little longer in the endless night. Until the next whisper, sleep well, beneath the sun that has learned to dream.